gets tighter. So you want to have a stiffer, right rear spring in the car. That's when you start seeing on the pit stops guys shoving spring rubbers in there to get that back of that car up and the left front down. But right now it's all about speed and qualifying.
And it's very rare in life that we say it's good to have a wide rear end. But here at Talladega, when you're blocking cars behind you, that is a time where it's actually good. We're going to take a quick break here from the speed stage. When we come back, it'll be time to set the field for Sunday's Sprint Cup race here at Talladega.
I'm putting together a special team with special powers.
On May 1st, witness the origins. Rated PG-13.
Stay low, watch your inside.
Watch the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race and listen to the first ever broadcast of the Driver Crew Chief Meeting, all live on your phone. Only with NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. Only from Sprint.
That was me, Tony Stewart. Before I started using swagger from Old Spice. Thanks, Old Spice.
Yourself with 5 quarts of Pennzoil or Quaker State conventional motor oil and a Purolator Premium Plus oil filter for $14.99. Whatever you're working on, Advance Auto Parts will help you keep the wheels turning.
Kawasaki's Greenlight event is on. Save up to $1,500 on ATVs, street bikes, watercraft, RUVs, dirt bikes, and more. This event ends soon. Head to your Kawasaki dealer today.
Nice car. Not so nice scratch. Wouldn't it be nice if removing ugly scratches from your car was this easy? Now with new Finish Scratch Doctor, removing surface scratches is easy. In fact, independent laboratory tests have proven Scratch Doctor to be the best scratch remover available. Scratch Doctor with advanced microtechnology also removes paint scrapes, scuffs, haze, and swirl marks. So get Scratch Doctor.
#1 rated Scratch Doctor, available at Advance Auto, Kmart, Walgreens, Target, AutoZone, Walmart, and other leading stores.
Welcome, everybody, to the Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama and NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying. To gain these all-important points in Sprint Cup competition, you must first make the show. Usually this pressure is on a Friday, but because of the impound process by NASCAR at the restrictor plate tracks, we now have this pressure building all the way to Saturday. And not only is the heat on these go-or-go-home cars, the heat is also on the racetrack. The winningest driver actively at this racetrack is Jeff Gordon with 6 victories, and we consider us all out here at the speed stage winners because we've got a beautiful weekend for racing here at one of the most famous racetracks in all of motorsports, the Talladega Superspeedway. Hello, everybody. I'm John Roberts, and welcome to qualifying for the Sprint Cup Series today. We have 45 cars going for 43 spots, and Hermie Sadler with us once again. When we break it all down, it comes down to, in this qualifying session, it's about the guy who gets the pole because he gets the check and the interview after the qualifying session. But other than that, it's about the go-or-go-home cars. 2 are going to have to go home very disappointed.
Yeah, that's what makes the sport as tough as it is. But the bottom line is, too, pit road's position can be very important, too. The selection you get on pit road, the cars you're around, and, we typically have some green flag pit stops here at Talladega. You want to be pitting around some guys that you're probably going to want to race around on the racetrack to get on and off pit road as well. But I tell you, from a driver's standpoint, this is, pretty nerve-wracking day because, you practiced yesterday and you watch your RPMs, and then today when you get on the racetrack after all the stuff we've seen in the previous show as far as inspection is concerned, you want to make sure you got all your speed back in your race car. So that's going to be interesting to see who's got the speed today in qualifying, JR.
Now, throughout the morning, we've been following the inspection process. For more on that, let's go back into the garage and rejoin Bob Dillner.
Well, it's a very tedious inspection process for the NASCAR restrictor plate tracks at Talladega and Daytona. In fact, it's a 13-stage process. During the NASCAR Live program, Johnny, we showed you several of the processes through this inspection situation. In fact, we showed the springs being issued for the cars here. They are mandated by NASCAR, and these springs, you got two choices, and they go on your cars, and NASCAR observes you actually putting them on. Also, the restrictor plate. We call it a restrictor plate inspection process. That's because you have the plate with 4 holes that are 15/16 in size. And of course, the shocks also go along with that. Penske mandated shocks by NASCAR, which teams have to put on. After all of those stages, you come over here into this part of the garage area where the teams go through the template process. In fact, when they first arrive at the racetrack, there is what we call the egg crate or the claw. There's 94 different templates that go on this body, but NASCAR can't actually put this crate on the car at this time of the weekend because the wing is already on the car and the crate won't fit. But what they have is a bunch of individual templates that go on the car to measure all those 94 points. And you can see there are 2 different colors of the templates. In fact, if you come over here, you can see one going on for the splitter right now, but I have this template in my hand right here, and this is a non-painted template. This is a common template that will fit all of the race cars. Now, the painted ones are actually specific to each make. You can see this one right here is a red template. That signifies the Dodge colors. So this is a NASCAR Dodge Cup template to measure a portion of the body. So a very tedious area over here. From here, they actually go over to the weights and the height sticks and so forth. And finally, when it's all said and done, Hermie Sadler, they go out onto pit road where NASCAR officials still check the wing angle on these race cars. A very, very difficult process, but the NASCAR officials do a great job, Hermie Sadler, on making sure these cars all fit the spec.
Yeah, they really do. And getting back to the rear springs, I want to clarify something, JR. You got 2 choices, as we talked about, a 500-pound spring or a 525-pound spring. And it's one of the key things we talk about, the go or go home guys. They're going to choose a pair of 500s because that gives you maximum travel in the back. But if your car that's locked in, you may choose a 500 left rear, 525 right rear, and give up a little bit of speed now, knowing that once the race starts, that's going to help your car keep the attitude right and drive better in the draft. Just one of the decisions you have to make if you're a go-or-go-home team.
And because of the way this process works and how important it is for the go-or-go-home cars to make the show, they work on qualifying. Everybody else works on race setup. So don't be surprised if you see a different name on the pole than you're used to seeing here on a Sprint Cup weekend. Stick around, everybody. Much more to come.
A car that keeps pace with you. Because you're more than one thing. And so is Venza.
Why are you in my yard?
Why are you in your yard? There's all sorts of super destinations. You could go to a jazz festival, stock car racing, ride a donkey in a canyon. You just gotta go. I got free Wi-Fi.
Working on Carl's signature move was not going well.
Oh, dude.
Then we were eating Subway sandwiches, and that was it. He's been doing it ever since.
Nothing fuels Carl Edwards like a sweet onion chicken teriyaki. The flavor he wants, the fuel he needs.
Subway. Eat fresh.
Because no yard tool should be this hard to start, Black & Decker created the powerful 18-volt yard care system. Our trimmer starts easily and cuts more than any other 18-volt string trimmer. And our hedge trimmer has the largest cut.
Welcome back to Talladega, everyone. Here on Speed, we're getting ready for NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying. It's just a matter of a few moments away, and this is race number 9 of the season. And because of the Sprint Cup chase format, we only have 26 races before we decide who's going to be in the top 12 and who is going to run for the 2009 championship. Now let's take a look at points after 9 of the races. And if you're a fan of the number 24 team, this is a pretty good-looking situation here for this weekend, because not only, Hermie Sadler, is Jeff Gordon on top of the points, he is also the winningest active driver here at Talladega.
Isn't it a complete shot for Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson to be 1-2 in the points?
Imagine that.
That's not a surprise, but look down the line a little bit. How about Tony Stewart only 8 races into a new ownership operation.
Great start.
Driver on. I mean, great start for him.
And also for Clint Boyer in a fairly newly formed 33 team with a new group over there at RCR. He is leading that charge in the 6th position in points. It should come as no surprise to see Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards also competing for a championship. But this may surprise many people that David Rudiman in that 00 is doing a great job for Michael Waltrip Racing.
You keep thinking that's a fluke so far, but I'm going to tell you what, he is, he's producing each and every week, and I think the guy's for real.
And Casey Kane also back there for Richard Petty Motorsports. He's back on top contending for a championship once again after a couple pretty difficult years for that team.
Yeah, it really is, but they got to get more consistent. I mean, they've got to perform and get more top 5s, more top 10s. And the other thing is Matt Kenseth won the first 2 races of the year. He's all the way back to 12th, so he needs to rebound as well.
There's simply not much room in that top 12 in points when it comes to running for a championship in NASCAR's top series. Let's go down to Randy.
Hey, thanks. We have Steve Meal here, competition director for Earnhardt Ganassi Racing. Steve, you've been coming down here a long time and a long time for plate racing, but you were here before that. How has this whole process changed, and what do you guys look for your teams here today in qualifying, and how will you race?
Well, the race is so important. It's such a big race. It's so easy to come from 30th to 1st. I won't say easy, but everyone is competitive enough that if you're in the back with 10 to go, you could probably still win the race. So we're basically, like yesterday, we didn't practice a whole lot. We don't want to hurt our race car. The cars are real delicate, very sensitive to any kind of body damage that we would have. So in years past, you came down here and it was a little bit about handling. You ran real hard in practice. You learned who you could draft with and who you couldn't. Now it's such a gorgeous racetrack. It's so easy to drive on that you can draft with anyone. You certainly need a good partner, but it's not like in the old days, well, a Chevrolet will draft better with a Ford or so on and so forth. So we're just going to go out here and shoot this thing in the show, start the race tomorrow, have good pit stops, try to be with the right crowd at the right time, and that's everybody else's job too.
All right, Steve, good luck here tomorrow and qualifying.
Thanks, Randy.
All right, to Bob Dillman.
Mark McCardle is the Vice President of Competition for Richard Petty Motorsports, and yesterday we saw the 9 of Casey Kane and also the 44 of A.J. Allmendinger have some engine difficulties. Have you diagnosed that problem?
Yes, I think we have, Bob. The problem is we introduced a new package with regard to the way in which we keep the motor oil cool, and backfired on us a bit, unfortunately. Through an exhaustive amount of testing that we did at the Chrysler Proving Grounds, we felt we'd come up with a package that would have the ability to allow us to run less opening at the front of the race car for giving us the advantage we felt of reducing aerodynamic drag. All of our testing showed that, if anything, we would be fighting a situation where our oil temperatures would be too cool. Well, the draft had something else to say about that, and we got out there yesterday. Very quickly found ourselves with a 90-degree Fahrenheit split between oil and water temperatures. Just far too much. The problem is that we wind up with too much expansion in the piston, not enough in the block. The block grabs the piston, and it gets ugly from there.
We got the answer, Johnny.
Thanks a lot. We appreciate those guys coming on and talk to us. Best of luck when they get out there on the racetrack. Time for qualifying on the other side of the break.
Tonight, on Speed, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series storms into the open plains, where rolling thunder is as fast as lightning.
Look out sideways!
And one wrong move could dash some dreams in the heartland. It's the perfect storm of danger and speed. Don't miss the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Live from Kansas tonight, 5:30 Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. Be there.
What project are you working on today?
This.
We can help you with that.
Thanks. I'm just starting out, so I'm kind of on a budget.
We're good with budgets. You'll need one of these, at least. Pit crew.
Okay.
Crew chief.
Cool.
Read this. And you'll need an owner. I recommend this one.
What about fans?
What do you say we start with 300,000 and go from there?
Whoa.
Helping people do more than they ever thought possible. That's the power of the Home Depot.
Here's a special.
What your engine feels, you feel. And when it's running clean, you feel it. That's why Pennzoil Motor Oil is specially formulated to clean out up to 15% of sludge in the first oil change. And a cleaner engine just feels better. So change with Pennzoil and feel the clean. Not just oil, Pennzoil. 5-quart bottles of Pennzoil, $12. Pennzoil high mileage vehicle, $13.50. Now at Walmart.
He'd be a pretty cold bastard who didn't want revenge for the death of someone he loved.
This man and I have some unfinished business. We have people everywhere.
You lost somebody?
I did.
You catch whoever did it?
Not yet. I will need you to get rid of him.
When you can't tell your friends from your enemies, it's time to go.
Right now, I think you're the only person I can trust.
Hit movies without the trip to the video store. On demand with Comcast Digital Cable.
Two laps to glory. That's the story today here in Talladega County, Alabama. Our NASCAR Sprint Cup drivers will try to tame this 2.66 mile tri-oval and earn a front row starting spot for Sunday's 500-mile NASCAR race that you'll see live on Fox. Welcome to Talladega Superspeedway, celebrating 40 years of racing. Don't let that 77 on the temperature fool you. It's going to go all the way up into the 90s today. Will be the hottest day of the weekend. Hi, everybody, and welcome to pole qualifying. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you. Well, Darrell, now really, we call it 2 laps to glory. That's kind of fun to say, but how important is qualifying up front here at Dega?
Here's what I know. I know if I start up front, I'm probably going to be in the back before too long. I know if I start in the back, I'm probably going to be in the front before too long. So qualifying here, yeah, you get a, pit selection obviously is important, but not as much as a lot of racetracks. So pit road's huge here, and the draft is so effective on this car that really and truly, I don't care where I qualify. I just want a starting spot, tell me where my pit box is, and I'm going to go racing. So, yeah, I'd like to qualify good because it means I got a good race car, but it doesn't mean that I'm out of this thing by any means.
Okay. Larry, we take a look at practice times, and basically we take that paper here, throw it up, wad it, throw it away, because they're all set during during drafting, so they really don't mean a whole lot, or somebody catches a draft and gets a fast lap. So how do you decide who's a favorite for the pole today?
We have no idea.
Right.
Because of the schedule here, it's an impound schedule, which means they got 2 one-hour practices yesterday. They qualify. NASCAR impounds the car. You will race your qualifying setup. So if you look at the practice sheet, it was all about drafting. And normally on a regular weekend, we have a pretty good feel for who was the fastest, who's going to be good in qualifying. It's been Mark Martin a lot this year. But right now, even in the garage area, I think guys know how fast they can run with their race setup, but they don't know if it's going to be good enough for the pole. But the real drama is going to come at the end with those go-or-go homers. How aggressive do they get trying to qualify for the show with a possible race setup?
Okay, we got a lot of stories to cover, including Richard Petty Motorsports. They've changed the engine in all 4 of their Dodges. But first, Chris Devoda.
Hi, Mike. Want to talk with one of the Roush Fenway drivers, Jamie McMurray, down here on the grid. And Jamie, if you can explain to people at home, it looks so easy on television because the track's so smooth. What does it feel like in a race car here at Talladega?
Well, qualifying is very easy. You said this for years, that just about anybody could do qualifying here. But the racing yesterday in race trim certainly is a lot of fun, and our Crown Royal Ford Fusion was really good in race trim. We haven't run as well here since we had the car tomorrow. We had a car that Kurt actually had when it was the 97 team, and that car was faster. That was at Daytona or at Talladega, but we haven't been quite as good with the car tomorrow. But the guys at the Roush Yates engine shop have done a really good job, and they've actually made our cars even a little bit slicker than what they were at Daytona. So our car was really good yesterday.
All right, and he has won at Daytona, so why not Talladega, Mike?
Thanks, Krista. Michael Waltrip is the first driver on track. He has more starts at Talladega than anyone in the 45-car field. This will be his 46th Cup race at Talladega in a career that goes back to 1986. 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, in the fall of '07, he won the pole here.
Yeah, see a little stage dust flying up there from the ARCA race yesterday. Not hurting a thing, and the car looks really nice and smooth. And I got to tell you, Larry, you know this for a fact. This cat, Michael, can win this race. He was coming to the front, he and Jimmy Johnson last year in this race when his engine blew up. So the way his car's run this year, he can win this race very easily.
No question. Mike, you talked about his career here. No matter what Michael Waltrip has driven here, no matter what team, he's always been competitive. But you see the corkscrew effect. He was right against the wall trying to get this carburetor restrictor plate engine wound up, and now you're going to run the shortest distance around this 2.66 mile track, even on the backstretch, right against the yellow line. In fact, I think we'll see some of these guys, when they come through the trial on the second lap, they'll actually be on the apron trying to shorten the racetrack up.
Yeah, I don't like that, but I guess it's okay for qualifying. If you got to stay above the yellow line in the race, you ought to have to stay above the yellow line practicing and qualifying. But that's not for me to say. I will say this, going out first is a real advantage in my mind. Your oils are still nice and hot from the car just coming out of the garage area, and the track's pretty cool right now, and I think, you know, if you're going to cut a good lap, this is the time to do it.
Down to the start-finish line, located down toward turn 1, not in the center of the tri-oval as at Daytona. 51.41, 186 miles an hour.
And that's pretty common. You'll pick up, if you run the very top of the racetrack on lap 1 all the way to the bottom on lap 2, you will pick up about 3/4 of a second, which is what Michael picked up.
And yesterday in practice, in drafting, he ran a 49.33.
Wow.
So it just shows you what being on the racetrack by yourself versus with other cars will do for you, what the wind or the air will do for you.
Big difference. Here's our True Value track description. Talladega Super Speedway opened in 1969, built by Bill France Sr. after the success of Daytona. 2.66 miles around, steeply banked, the steepest of all NASCAR tracks at 33 degrees. Not quite 17 in the front straightaway, and just a little bit of a tilt for drainage on the backstretch, which is 4,300 feet long, and that's longer than the landing strip at many a U.S. airport.
But I think it just shows the difference in the contrast in Bill France Sr. wanted to build a track where these cars can run 200 miles an hour. Bill France Jr. wanted to build a racetrack where they'd run under 200 miles an hour. So he put a restrictor plate on his dad's racetrack.
That's right. The Rocket, Ryan Newman. New paint scheme for Stuart Haas on his car. Army is on there, but also Prelude to the Dream, which is only on HBO pay-per-view this year. There will be no free re-air, so you're going to have to sign up for pay-per-view if you want to see it. And Larry, they're going to benefit some good causes, and they have a new initiative this year.
Yeah, it's mainly revolving around the military, and especially helping families of the military personnel that are in need and that have been injured. A great cause, this whole package that they're putting together.
And I don't know, you and I have been there 3 years now. And it is one of the most fun races that we go to ever. To see Cup stars get on a dirt track in those late model kind of modifieds and sling them around a half-mile dirt track is fascinating to me.
My two great enduring memories there are seeing both Ryan Newman and Bill Elliott flip their cars in separate accidents, climb out, jump up on the car, and bow and wave to the crowd. I mean, it's all for show, it's all for fun, and it's for a lot of great causes.
I think probably one of the most intriguing things to me was when Jeff Gordon went there 2 years ago for the first time. Hadn't been on dirt in like 12, 15 years. And went out the first time, I said, man, he's forgotten how to run dirt. The next time out, he was the fastest car on the racetrack.
Right.
And he and Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards, that was one of the most exciting races that I'd ever seen on a half-mile racetrack.
Now, here's something we'll be paying close attention to, especially if we see cars run the same line on lap 1. Ryan Newman was 2/100ths quicker than Michael Waltrip on lap 1. And it looks like he's going to pick up quite a bit more. There's what I was talking about right there. That's on the apron through the trial that Ryan Newman ran trying to shorten the racetrack up.
Newman is quickest at a 51.30, 186.6 miles per hour. Casey qualifying on speed is presented by Subway, home of the famous, always made fresh $5 footlong. Subway, eat fresh. And brought to you by the Polaris XP sales event going on now, but hurry, it ends April 30th. And by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. Casey Mears on track in the Jack Daniels 07 Chevrolet.
It's on a good one, Mike. I tell you, it looks pretty fast.
Yeah, he laid down a pretty good first lap. He ran a 51.93. He runs a 51.09, so he beats Ryan Newman by a couple of tenths of a second.
Now, this team is going to go through a huge change in the next week, as it did in the offseason. The team Casey Mears drives for is the group that supported Clint Boyer last year. They were moved over to take care of Richard Childress' new driver, Casey Mears, this season. Mears has been okay. Kevin Harvick has been struggling. Yeah. So Harvick and Mears are going to essentially swap teams completely, except for the spotters, teams, cars, engineering support, everything, beginning next week
at Richmond.
And you know what? You're probably going to see all those cars run good this weekend, because every time I've been in an owner meeting when he started doing stuff like that, you know the last thing he said is he left the room. And if that doesn't work, y'all might want to put an application in somewhere else.
Steve Burns.
Thanks, Mike. With Michael Waltrip. Michael, this race has been won from the pole. It's been won from 34th. So how do you look at this qualifying session in terms of the entire weekend?
I hope it's won from 34th again, because I think that'll be close to where we end up. We sat on the pole here a couple years ago and just haven't had the speed it takes to do that. But both races last year, we had a real shot at winning them, and I feel the same thing will happen on Sunday. I can't wait.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, watch this. I don't even really have to turn it up.
It's like a water fountain. Refreshing.
Refreshing.
He never ceases to amaze me.
The skill set of the different drivers in this sport is just amazing. Carl Edwards.
Some more than others.
Here's a look at Carl's season to date. He is 8th in the standings, but problems on pit road have dogged him. Edwards hasn't won. His best finish this season, 3rd in Atlanta. 4 top 10 finishes, including 10th in the last 2 Cup races. His best start of the year, 11th at Phoenix. And he's had disappointing finishes here last year, 40th and 29th.
You know, and I think the most notably disappointing finish was the one from the fall, when he pretty much bump drafted his teammate Greg Biffle late in the race in 3 and 4. Took out about 3 of the Roush Fenway cars, plus a host of others.
And I was going to say, like, you know, one of the hardest things, and I don't know why this is, but it's not like it just happened this past year. When you end the season with a lot of momentum, and you end the season on a winning note, it seems like the next year you start off, you're flat. You just can't get it going. So you would think at the end of the season with a lot of momentum, you know, you'd carry right over in, but I don't know if you are afraid to do anything. It reminds me of Bobby Knight. He said that teams that play well in the regular season never play well in the playoffs in college basketball. They go in with a kind of complacent attitude. Teams that have had a bad regular season step up in the playoffs because they want to prove something.
Tell you what, he was 2/100ths of a second slower than Casey Mears, and he's going to be just all but right there. In fact, I think it's like 1/100th slower than Casey Mears. He's second right now. But I think the biggest thing with this 99 team, Darrell, they won 9 races last year. I've said it and said it. I don't think they're any worse than they were last year. They may be, or even better. It's just the competition just keeps getting better and catching up.
We'll talk more about the Fords in general and how they're faring a little later on in this qualifying show. Steve?
With Casey Mears. Casey, I want to ask you about your run. Also want to ask you about the teams sliding around at RCR. Your thoughts on both?
As far as my run goes, I feel pretty good about it. You know, it sounds, you know, from what I learned from where they were last year, the guys worked really hard in the offseason here to come back to Talladega, and real proud of what they did. We struggled a little bit with speed at Daytona, and Richard wanted to make sure that we picked up that speed, and the guys worked real hard at the race shop and got us some speed. And, you know, I don't know where it's going to end up, but it's definitely a heck of a lot better than we were last time we were here. And as far as everything else, you know, it's just a change. You know, obviously, you know, we weren't where we quite want to be. You know, the 29 wasn't running like they wanted to run, so they just wanted to shake things up a bit and see what we get. I'm real happy with the team I'm with now. I'm real happy with the team I'm getting ready to go to. So, you know, hopefully we can just catch up on things as quickly as possible and learn each other. I think that as far as, you know, Gil and all them guys, we're just kind of starting to get to the point where we're really starting to understand each other. But at the same time, I've known Todd for a long time, and they're a great team over there, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, thanks.
We'll have more on this story when Kevin Harvick makes his run.
You know, one thing I noticed, and I kind of have a keen ear. I can tell how a car's running a lot of times just by listening to it. Those Childress cars this week down here have got a lot keener sound, a lot sharper sound than they've had in the past.
They've really been struggling at the restrictor plate racetracks. They race great. Kevin Harvick finished second in the Daytona 500. They just couldn't cut that fast lap by themselves.
Right. Here comes a retro. It's a retro paint scheme time, and we got a few of those. Jeff Gordon evoking the old number 11 Pepsi Challenger that Darrell drove to a championship.
Yeah, that's I know people at home, they probably could care less that he's running a car, but it does an old guy like me, it does my heart a lot of good to see somebody like Jeff Gordon, a 4-time champion, willing to take his normal paint job and put this retro paint job on there for this weekend. It's pretty special.
Well, I think when they ran that race of legendary stars at Bristol, the most exciting thing of that race was seeing those cars come out in all the paint schemes that those drivers ran back in the day. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Well, you know what it does, too? It helps people connect to the past. There's a lot of people that never saw that car on the racetrack. So they all create a little interest and want to, you know, see what the history of that was.
Yeah, I mean, it was only 25 years ago.
Only.
Now, his first lap was a 1/10.5 quicker than Casey Mears, but he wasn't as high up on the racetrack on lap 1, and I think that's the reason we're not seeing that much of a pickup. Will it be enough? Yes, just barely.
3 1/1000ths, Larry.
3/1000ths of a second.
It's on the pole for now.
Sunday, NASCAR Race Day takes on Talladega, where everyone lives on the edge.
Wide open, never let off the gas.
That's why it's so exciting. NASCAR Race Day, built by the Home Depot. Live Sunday, 11:30 Eastern. NASCAR on speed. Be there.
All right, class, let's button it. Becker.
Here.
Callahan. Callahan. Delivery confirmation on Callahan.
Drop him off at 8:15.
Gymnasium. No, sir. No Callahan. Always.
No Callahan. Just a freshman.
Thank you. No emails from his parents. Drivers, I need a 20 on Callahan. Got him. Reroute him straight to detention.
Get more done now with the new BlackBerry Curve, the only BlackBerry Curve with Nextel Direct Connect.
Serious economic times call for a serious tractor. That's why heavy-duty Mahindra tractors push more, pull more, and lift more. So you get more for your money. Like 0 down, 0 APR, and 0 payments for 6 months. If you're ready to see one heck of a return on your investment, visit MahindraUSA.com and cultivate your dreams.
So, what do you think?
I think I'll go with the basic package.
Great choice.
Meineke gives you options on complete car care, and we'll help you choose what's right for you. And right now, save 50% on brake pads and shoes. At Meineke, you're always the driver.
Right about now, this country could use a little joyride. So walk into a Harley-Davidson dealer today and test ride any new bike available. No obligation, no bull. You'll feel something that's been hard to feel lately. Excited about the direction you're headed. The Harley-Davidson Super Ride. Take the ride of your life.
Hi, this is Chuck Storm. I'm live at the scene where last night there was a robbery at about 3:30 in the morning. Now, police are
G'day, mate. Marcus Ambrose on the track. I don't do that well at all.
No, you don't.
Mike Quattro Cinco kind of thing going on.
I just hope he's not fizzed up again.
I don't think he's going to be too fizzed up about this first lap because it's by far the slowest of the first lap. In fact, he's about 2.5 tenths slower than his teammate Michael Waltrip. But there's no question, this has been one of the most pleasant surprises, I think, of 2009. You know, we had Michael Waltrip on our trackside show last night, and you can tell, talking to Michael, the performance of this 47 and David Ruderman is the good news, bad news. You know, it has Michael frustrated. He's happy because his race teams are running good, but he's frustrated because he knows that he has the same equipment, and right now the performance is just not what they feel like it should be with him.
No. 51.59 for Marcus Ambrose. He's the slowest of 6 so far in the Kingsford Toyota.
Vote your favorite driver to the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race at NASCAR.com/All-Star or by texting NASCAR to 7777 on your Sprint phone.
The campaigning has started. Vote for my hubby, AJ, to be an All-Star.
I tell you what, that's becoming a bigger and bigger deal every single year. You know, it started a few years ago when they were doing the fan vote, but it's more and more of the sponsors and drivers are promoting vote me into the All-Star race.
Yeah, I really believe it. I'd have added one more thing on there: free pizza.
But just remember, our man that won that race a year ago, he was the fan vote, Casey Kane.
Steve Burns.
Jeff Gordon just out of his race car, a great-looking race car, by the way. You've had so much success here, Jeff. Let's talk about today. You're number 1 on the scoreboard right now. Will that hold up?
I don't think it's going to hold up, but I'm happily surprised. You know, we did make a qualifying effort yesterday, and we really thought we were going to run in the 20s or 30s. So to be I think an 09 or something with the DuPont Pepsi Challenger Chevrolet, we're having fun.
Do you need the hats we brought out last night for the sponsor?
No kidding. I'm gonna have to look at this thing again, but you know, it's really exciting to have this throwback paint scheme this weekend. It means a lot to me, and I think a lot of fans that remember that paint scheme. I know DW's liking it, but we are too, and hopefully we can have some good results. So far, so good.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you.
Now, the joke about the hat deal was, as Daryl on our trackside show last night, Jeff was one of our guests, he gave him a hat for each of his major sponsors because in Texas, in Victory Lane, he was struggling remembering all of his sponsors.
He was looking around at the car saying, let me see now, who am I supposed to think?
So that would be a lot of hats.
So we gave him like 7 or 8 hats last night so he'd know who all the sponsors were.
Well, like he said it in the 90s, he said he had no problem when he was winning 10, 11, 12 races a year. They just rattled right out.
Sam Hornish is on a flyer in the Penske Truck Racing Dodge. Got his best career Cup finish in Phoenix, 9th place. 12th at Texas and Las Vegas, his best start of the year. This is going to be a good lap.
It is. That's a good first lap. 51.76.
That is he's almost the fastest first lap. Yeah. He's like 3rd, 4th.
I think he's going to be almost the 2nd fastest lap.
Yeah, he looks like right now he's on pace to beat Jeff Gordon by about a 10th. This is a brand new car that they brought here this weekend.
Here
looks like he may get close to a 10th and a half quicker than Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, 50.94 by a 10th and a half. Sudden Sam is on the pole.
Sam I am.
And one interesting thing he said is we're looking at a couple of options. If we're not in the top 35, it might be a different driver than if we are in the top 35 going to Darlington.
You know, I don't think we've promoted enough. Yeah, this car started the season off locked in the first 5 races, but they did a nice, respectable job of keeping this car in the top 35 even after those first 5 races.
John currently 8th at a 52.40. Krista.
Jimmy Johnson and Juan Pablo Montoya catching up down on the grid. Both drivers very good at Talladega. I want to ask you about the mental aspect of this race. Your teammate Jeff Gordon said there's been times where his eyeballs hurt afterwards because he had to focus so much. How do you prepare mentally?
Preparing mentally is, I'm not sure how you prepare for it, but Jeff's 100% right. You go home, I go home from this race, and I have a really tough time falling asleep. I mean, certainly, I've been through a long day and physically kind of worn down, but mentally I cannot turn my brain off, and you start reliving the different moves that took place and where you may have lost the race or lost a better finish. So it is a tough race mentally, and really the only way to get better at it is by being in the fire and doing it. And with that in mind, I feel like with this car, it's more difficult to really protect what you have. It's a bigger car, guys can get a run on you and slingshot by you. So you spend a lot of time wondering, well, why did I do this? And well, how come this didn't work out right for me? And really kind of analyzing things afterwards.
That's really interesting. Jimmy has a hard time turning his brain off. I oftentimes have a hard time turning my brain on.
No, I can't believe that. It's rare. But I understand what he means because you'll see it Sunday on the onboard camera views. The drivers are looking forward, looking up in the mirror, left in the mirror, right in the mirror. Your eye muscles never get a break when you're racing here, do they?
Well, you're in a constant fast forward mode because you're always thinking about, okay, you know where you are. It's what I call track presence. You know where you are at that moment, but you're always trying to think about where am I going to be when I come off turn 2. Which way am I going to go down the back straightaway? What line am I going to get in? Who's behind me? Who's beside me? You're always trying. It's like a high-speed chess match, and you got to make the right move, or you'll get checked.
Jamie McMurray on track, the Crown Royal Fusion from Roush Fenway Racing.
It should be as good, if not better, than yesterday.
Now, how he knows that, he's looking at his tack. And he knows he's turning more RPM today than he did in maybe what was his practice qualifying run yesterday.
As McMurray finishes up, Steve is with Speedy Sam.
Yeah, Sudden Sam, how about that, Mike? 50.94 on the stopwatch, #1 on the scoreboard. Did you get everything you could out of that race car?
I think so. I mean, right here for us, this is more about what the team has done at the shop than what we do as drivers. So I'm really proud of all the guys at the Penske Engine Shop and also the guys that fabricators that put these cars together. We felt that we were a little bit behind at Daytona, and they marked this day down on the calendar to make sure that they came back with more horsepower and slicker cars, and that's what they did. So really happy that the AAA Dodge was running as good as it was, and we've had a pretty good last week and a half, so we're just going to keep trying to move forward and have a good day. We didn't expect to be as quick as we are right now, and we're just really happy about it, and hopefully we'll have a good race tomorrow.
Good luck, Sam.
Thank you.
Jamie Mack did not go to the apron going through the Trioval, and that's where he drifted back one spot. Might have made up a little of that as he ends up 7th out of 9 so far. Elliott Sadler and Kyle Busch are next. Elliott Sadler out for his qualifying pass. Both the Sadler brothers have birthdays this month. Hermie yesterday, and Elliott's at the end of the month. 52.58 on the first lap for the Best Buy Dodge.
These 2 laps are pretty important because these are the first laps on this engine. They changed at the end of the second practice. All 4 of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars changed engines. So this qualifying run is for pit selection only. They will have to start the race tomorrow, all 4 of those cars at the rear of the field.
51.99, he is 9th of 10. Autism Awareness Month, April, and Elliott has a special helmet with those puzzle pieces painted on it, and we'll be auctioning it off for charity at the end of the month. Krista.
Ryan Vickers catching up with our most recent race winner, Mark Martin. So I got to know, what was the week like for you, and does it compare to the first one? You talked about 20 years ago, your first victory lap.
It doesn't compare at all. I can't hardly remember 20 years ago, so this one really stuck in my memory hard. To me, it feels like the most special one of all of them. And it was really great to see Kellogg's CarQuest team in victory lane, their smiles on their face and what it meant to them. And it makes going to the racetrack even more fun. So, I think we feel more confident now and feel a little more comfortable, and we just go out here and keep digging we're having a blast even before Phoenix. So we'll just keep doing that.
He said the one thing he is right now is extremely happy.
Note on the graphic, he's 1 spot away from the chase, but he is gaining on it.
Considering 4 races ago, he was 34th in the points.
Right.
Yeah, well, we were talking about going to the race in, was it Bristol, I think it was, and if he could stay in the top 35 or not.
That's right.
And now here we are. Can he get into the top 12?
Kyle Busch has 2 victories this season. That's double his win production of 2008 to this point. He won at Las Vegas and Bristol. Just 3 top 10s, but he is 7th in the standings because he's finished 17th or worse the last 3 races. He has led more laps than any driver, 519, but hasn't always shown up at the finish line.
And I think Mark was going to have his work cut out for him those last few laps at Phoenix last week, because this guy came off pit road in second behind Mark, but was too fast exiting, had to go to the rear of the field to restart that race with less than 10 laps to go.
And he was pretty vocal about it. Kyle was. He said, what do you mean? They got me for speeding by 5 1/1000ths of a second? What kind of deal is that? I think he was forgetting that that's 5 1/1000ths of a second faster than the 5 miles an hour over the limit that NASCAR allows as a grace period. So you chewed all that up and then some, you get a penalty.
Yeah, well, it's frustrating for the driver. I think back to Dale Jr. at Daytona. His right front tire was just on the line outside of it. It wasn't outside the pit box. It was on the line, but it says it has to be inside the line. So you got to draw lines, and whatever that line is, if you cross it.
Well, it's like we said when it happened. If that boy's foot's on the line when he catches that pass,
that's right.
The Cardinals win the Super Bowl. So things happen. And here's Kyle Busch going to clock in 5th with a 51.25.
Picked up about 3 tenths of a second. So he definitely becomes the fastest Toyota so far.
When you cut the car off, you're coasting like that right there. They do a test called the coast down test. you can tell a lot about your race car when the engine's off, and you can hear how the car is going through the wind. Sometimes the car is real nice and smooth. Other times you can feel that wind really buffing off of the car, and you tell the team that, and they look for areas to improve that upon.
Next up, a driver who is maybe a threat for the pole, but he is certainly a threat for the win here tomorrow. The Office Depot number 14 of Tony Stewart, who comes in here with a brand new race team, 4th in the Sprint Cup standings, 6 top 10 finishes. He's the highest driver in the points who has not yet won, and he's coming off 3 straight top 5s and a whole string of top 10 qualifying efforts.
You know, Mike, we used to even talk about Tony the first half of the year. It usually July before he really kicked in and started really putting up numbers.
You know, it's right, Darryl. It's like his alarm clock didn't go off to Memorial Day.
Exactly. It seemed like as soon as the Indy 500 was over with, he focused on the job at hand here in NASCAR. But boy, he's on it this year.
Well, as you well know, it's different when you're signing the checks instead of just cashing them.
What side the check is on makes a big difference. What side your name on the check is a big difference.
I mean, you're right, though, Darryl. This is his 11th season in Sprint Cup, and after 8 races, this season here, points-wise, everything, he's by far ahead of where he's ever been in those first 10 years.
He finished 2nd at Talladega 6 times before winning here last October from 34th starting position. Has 3 restrictor plate poles, and he has started in the top 15 every race this year so far.
Now his first lap is just kind of okay,
yeah,
52.15. The fastest first lap was Sam Hornish Jr. and Jeff Gordon, right at a 51.76. This is the same car that was so good during speed weeks. Finished 2nd in the Gatorade Dual 150, and if you remember in final practice on Saturday, the day before the 500, his teammate Ryan Newman had a tire come apart. Tony got caught up in the wreck, and they had to go to a backup car.
It looks like this string of top 15 starts may end right here.
That car has that kind of buffeting through the wind sound.
Yeah, I think the anticipation, Mike, is some of those go-or-go-homers, because they're going to be so aggressive that they're going to qualify well up in the field, and that's going to hurt some of the efforts of our top 35 guys.
Stewart is 7th for now with a 51.36. Allmendinger and Jimmy Johnson next. Think about that sentence for a second, but new Kentucky Grilled Chicken is here. And this Monday, you can try a piece free. Stop in your KFC.
All day long.
Taste the unfried side.
Now, this is pretty amazing. A.J. Allmendinger's first lap was 52.584. His teammate Elliott Sadler's first lap was 52.585. 1/1000th of a difference.
Conspiracy?
I don't think so.
New engine.
Same engine.
All the same.
Well, the second lap then should be a 9.97, but it's a little quicker. It's a 51.872, and the Dinger's 11th.
Now, his engine yesterday in the first practice, that's what started the whole epidemic with the Richard Petty Motorsports.
But he did get out with his engine, where Elliott didn't.
Right.
Which probably helped him with the tuning.
Tune it just a little bit better.
Yeah, he's a 10th faster. Steve.
And Mike with Kyle Busch, and Kyle finishing up some other interviews, and
Steve, how can you be on speed and now be on speed? I don't understand.
It's a simulcast.
Oh, thank you.
It's high definition.
Now I get it.
Kyle, one of my favorite racing expressions is checkered or record. You've been both here at Talladega, defending champion the year before, 36th your best finish. Talk about the mental approach to racing here.
Well, there really isn't one. To be honest with you, you just come in here and you know, everything's so far outside your hands. It's all in everybody else's hands and what goes on and what happens. And, you know, you try to position yourself up front and get up front and do well up there, and then somehow you get shuffled to the back or the middle, and then wrecks start happening, and then you're caught up in them. So it's just, you know, it's really a crapshoot on knowing what's going to happen here. So for us, we just go out there and try to do what we can. Luckily, the first race we stayed out of the wreck. Every other race I've been here, I've been in a wreck. So hopefully this time around we can, if we get in a wreck, we still come out of it safe and in one piece.
Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Let's go to Krista.
All right, thanks, Steve. And someone that's going to try to be drafting with Kyle Busch is his teammate Joey Logano. Joey, your first Cup start here, but you've raced ARCA, a truck, Any way to kind of practice choosing which line to go in or how to draft at this track?
No, not really. You just got to go out there and figure it out on your own, pretty much. You know, you can talk to some of the guys and try to learn something there, watch some tapes. But for the most part, you just got to get out there and figure it out. So I got the nationwide race coming up here at the GameStop Toyota. So I think we got a decent car there. I'm going to learn a lot there for tomorrow in the Home Depot pad.
All right, thanks, Joey.
You know, remember yesterday we were watching he and Denny Hamlin, and Hamlin was lifting his wheels off the ground and bamming on him, and finally even NASCAR said, tell the 20 to back off. So I asked him about that, and they said it wasn't bothering him. No. Said he was fine. Said it didn't bother him a bit.
That's how you learn. Jimmy Johnson in the Lowe's Chevrolet. Last 4 races, he's finished first, second, third, and fourth. He's raced here 14 times. He's led laps in 13 of those 14 races. Has 1 win and a pair of runner-up finishes to show for it.
Not a very impressive first lap, though. It's only about 10th quickest as far as the first lap of each car. Of course, his teammate Jeff Gordon ran a 51.76. He just ran a 52.29.
Remember Daytona, Larry, I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago, and how frustrated Jimmy Johnson was with himself because he was talking to Jeff Gordon. They were actually talking to each other on their in-car radios about, I just don't know, I'm doing something wrong. I'm going the wrong places. I'm using the wrong lines. I don't know how to use my mirrors. He was really quite frustrated. And I think he really went to school off of Jeff Gordon, a lot like we saw Logano do yesterday, and he has become a master at drafting.
He's going to start pretty deep in the field. He's 11th right now with a 51.65. Montoya and Vickers next.
You can make some NASCAR dreams come true for kids who really deserve it just by getting your NASCAR Day pin at NASCAR.com/NASCAR Day.
NASCAR's partnered up with Coleman for the Cure and our Fox Sports supports. NASCAR Day, May 15th.
And I tell you what's might be Montoya Day here before long.
We were talking about that a while ago. These Earnhardt Ganassi cars, if you remember, Martin Truex Jr. sat on the pole for the Daytona 500. That absolutely is the fastest first lap by almost a 1/10 of a second. As you see right here, looks like he's going to back it up on lap 2.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Then they take some of those tons they got to target and send some down to Chad Knaus.
Well, if you remember when Tony Stewart and Regan Smith and Paul Menard came off turn 4 here to see who was going to win the race, there were 2 DEI cars that I thought were going to jump all over and smoke. One of them did, just happened to get a little low on the track.
This is definitely a pole run for Montoya.
50.89, that's 5/100ths faster than Sam Hornish.
Tell you what, he loves this place. If you remember, he finished second in this race a year ago.
There were a bunch of folks on our FoxSports.com chat last night saying, you know, you think Montoya can win Sunday?
Absolutely.
We'll see.
He's got more steam this year than he had a year ago, I guarantee you.
Looks like he might win on Friday anyway, or a Saturday.
Steve.
Tony Stewart, you had one of the classic lines about restrictor plate racing. You said it's like a high-speed game of chess, and I'm only smart enough to play checkers. But you won here in October, so are you smart enough to play chess now?
No, I just won a checkers game last year. It's you know, this place is always about being at the right place at the right time, and you can run your guts out all day and still end up 25th. It doesn't matter. This is one of those deals that you just have to be there at the end, and you have to put yourself in a position at the end to be up front. It doesn't matter what happens on lap 20. It doesn't matter what happens on lap 100. You have to take care of your car. Keep yourself out of bad positions during the day, because inevitably somebody's going to go in an opposite direction of somebody else, and it's not going to be a mistake on anybody's part, but that's just how close we run. So you just have to play defense 3/4 of the day and play a really good offense the last quarter.
All right, thanks very much, Tony. Let's go to Krista.
Well, nobody knows this track or how to drive it like Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale, with these new cars, I'm curious, did you have to learn to drive it different? Is the draft any different with this car compared to the old one?
Every time you come back here, the car's going to do different things, and you have different things you can do offensively, and there's different ways you got to play defense every time you come back, even with the old car. So it just depends on what kind of car the guys have built, and that's pretty much it. There's a big difference in how the old car and the new car draft, how you race with it. But yeah, I mean, it seems like every time you come back, even if they don't change the plates or the combination for these tracks, it feels like it. You're always working to try to get better.
Thanks, Dale.
Well, I think what backs that up Mike and Darrell, is 1 year ago Joe Nemechek was on the pole at a 51.10. And nothing has really changed as far as the rules from a year ago. And right now, Montoya is sitting on the pole at a 50.89. So that's almost 2/10 better than a year ago. And it's hotter this year than it was a year ago.
But look, business is picking up, Darrell. Vickers just ran the fastest first lap of the day.
But hotter is not necessarily a bad thing because that keeps all the fluids. The fluids are so critical on these qualifying runs, getting them up to the max temp. 280, 300 degrees on the water. And you want to keep the oil hot and the water cool, and you'll make better speed. Your gear will be warmer, everything will be warmer.
Now, I didn't notice, did Vickers run the bottom his first lap all the way around?
He was not up at the top, but if you remember, this is what the Red Bull teams did a year ago. They ran the bottom qualifying, and they just didn't have that much of a pickup because you're running the same distance on lap 1 that you run on lap 2, essentially.
He's going to get a couple spots, but not the big pickup that everyone else did. 51.37. He picks up only 2/10.
Yeah, he just didn't.
And he is 9th.
He didn't use the corkscrew.
Now, NASCAR mandates the rear end gear in these cars, and do they mandate every gear in the transmission, all the giddy up, get up to speed gears too?
Well, for the most part, you know, it has to be 1-to-1, of course. But yes, they do mandate most of the gears. But you have an option between a 360 and a 364, and there's a big debate when you're talking about the draft, especially when you know you're going to be running faster speeds in the race. And of course, they mandate the plate size, which is the carburetor restrictor plate at a 15/16. So pretty much all those things are the same on each and every race car.
Okay. It's picked up 4 degrees since we started qualifying. 77 when we began, when Michael Waltrip went out. Now it's up to 81. I'm sure the track temperature has climbed a bit more than those 4 degrees as the sun beats down on Juan Pablo Montoya, the fastest man in town, with Steve Burns.
Thanks, Mike. Juan Pablo, this has been a good racetrack for you. You finished second here a year ago. Right now, you're the fastest. Do you like racing at Talladega?
I'll tell you, we really enjoy it. I think, you know, everybody out there can ask, you know, this Tom Chevy seems to be really fast here. We had a great car in Daytona as well, so I don't know if he's going to hold on to pole, but, you know, our main real goal here was trying to start in the top 5, and I think we're going to be able to achieve that.
And you enjoy actually racing on Sunday?
Oh, yeah. This is one of those fun places that, you know, you can go anywhere. You know, it's not like the bottom or the top, or, you know, you can go 3 wide, 4 wide. It's all about working with people, and you can make it a lot of fun.
Thank you, Juan. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Now, this is interesting. There are 4 ex-IndyCar drivers, 3 ex-IndyCar drivers in the top 4 right now. Montoya, Hornish, and Casey Mears 4th.
But I definitely think Montoya's biggest challenge or biggest threat is going to be from his teammate, Martin Truex Jr., who's about 5 cars away.
Well, I don't know. I think he's on the track right now. I never would count Mark out because he has been on a pole run here lately. I mean, what's he won, like 3 out of the last 4 poles, something like that?
I think you're right.
This is definitely going to be a pretty decent first lap for Mark Martin, it looks like.
Yeah.
51.58.
I don't think he rim rided it.
He did
quite
not
as
run
much.
as high.
That is the 2nd quickest first lap to Brian Vickers by 100th.
But he did not run as high. He ran higher than Brian Vickers, but he didn't run as high as Montoya did.
But look at the pickup he's getting that Vickers did not.
I think, you know, I think Vickers' car may have gotten hot because it looked like it was on a pole run until it got right over in the middle of 3 and 4, and then from turn 4 to the finish line down here, it really slowed down, and that's usually engine related.
We've talked about Martin Truex Jr. sitting on the pole for the Daytona 500. This team here sat on the outside of the front row for qualifying. That car actually has that backwards crab look to it, doesn't it?
Reverse.
Yeah.
Reverse dog track.
It's going to be a good lap for Mark. He's going to be 3rd right now with a 50.97. That's only 8/100ths of a second off pole. Joey Logano and Paul Menard next. Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing, 51.95 on his first lap.
Pretty good first lap. That's a little quicker than his teammate Kyle Busch. He ran a 52.03, and Kyle's 7th right now.
Watch this little car in practice yesterday, and it looked really good. He stayed on the bottom all the time. He didn't venture out much, but the car was fast. He could keep up with anybody, and he got a lot of good experience yesterday out there in bump draft practice.
Car was sunk right down to the racetrack, and like we said, Greg Zipadelli, you know, rarely has he ever brought a bad piece to Talladega. So this should be a good one.
Well, the last time we were at Talladega in the fall, this team, the 20 car, went to victory lane with Tony Stewart.
Kyle Busch ran a 51.25 and is 7th.
About what this car is going to run, it looks like.
Logano, a 51.23. He is now 7th. Coming up, Paul Menard, Dale Jr., Martin Truex. NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying is brought to you by KFC. Stop in Monday for a free piece of new Kentucky Grilled Chicken. That's this Monday.
Take a K and an E and an N and a T and a U and a CKY. That spells Kentucky, but it means paradise.
Paul Menard, the Turtle Wax Ford, is not turtling around here.
It's a pretty good first lap, 52.03. Looks like he's going to crack the top 10.
9th for now for Menard, 51.25.
Right now, Carl Edwards is the fastest Ford at a 51.10. He is 6th.
Boy, I tell you somebody, Larry, we mentioned in a break there a while ago, Chad Canales has got to be down there saying, what in the world happened? He's 16th right now, Johnson is. No, that wasn't what they were planning on.
Yeah, 16th out of 19 cars.
Let's see if Krista can bust up this important meeting going on here between the Childress teammates.
That's right, teammates Jeff Burton and Kevin Harvick conversing. I'm going to steal them both, actually. Let's talk about Talladega. Just the mentality. We've been talking about how you have to mentally prepare because it's not a physical race, it's more mental. So how do you do that?
I think you just go out and you just kind of see where you fall as far as you know, how competitive your car is. And our Shell Pennzoil Chevrolet was really good in practice yesterday. It's the first time in a long time that we've been able to drive to somebody's bumper and push them. So that's what we were just talking about. We felt like we could be more offensive than we have been defensive in the past.
And Jeff, I saw you go kind of da-da-da-da-da. Is it talking about your car in practice at all?
Well, we were discussing being in the rev chips, which is a good thing because that means that we're fast enough to get in the rev chips, and everybody at RCR feels really good about our cars this weekend. I think it's the most optimism we've had going into a plate race. Now, if we can miss a 30-car wreck, we'll be all right.
Thanks, guys.
I think that supports what you were hearing and feeling, DW, that they feel like they got a little more steam under the hood than they've had at the restrictor plate track in a while.
Yeah, I always, the Childress cars, I can almost close my eyes until when one of them goes by. They've always had a little bit of a rattle in the tailpipes. Here they're really keen and clean.
And they always had that really aggressive shock package, especially at Daytona where those cars bounced around.
Yeah.
Let's see what we see here. Now, Dale Jr. of the Hendrick cars. Jeff Gordon right now is 4th. Jimmy Johnson is 16th. Mark Martin is 3rd.
And one thing we did not mention earlier in the show when Casey Mears went out to qualify, that on Tuesday, which is penalty day in NASCAR, after the on-track and on-pit road incident after the race at Phoenix, NASCAR, they did not really penalize Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Casey Mears. They didn't take points. They didn't do a monetary fine, but they did place the two drivers on probation for 6 races.
And Larry, I just think back to Mike Hilton telling me not long ago, I said, you know, this probation thing is kind of ridiculous. Never really had any teeth to it. He said it does now. He said, when we call you in the trailer now, or we call you on Tuesday and tell you we're going to put you on probation, you better not mess up. Because you might be looking for a little vacation place for 2 or 3 weeks. He said, we're not playing with probation anymore.
Well, certainly penalizing them would have made no sense for, you know, just a little bit of retaliation after the event that, you know, really didn't cause a lot of damage or a problem.
Well, are there 2 more unlikely characters to be, you know, running into each other on the racetrack and being put on probation?
And the initial accident happened because Casey wheel-hopped getting into the corner and got up into Junior.
I think this is going to add to Chad Canales' frustration. We got 3 Hendrick cars, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
And his is not one of them.
17th.
Yeah. Pole sitter Martin Truex, the Bass Pro Shops Chevrolet, on his first lap had the 4th quickest first lap, and now he's running 2nd, 3rd up there in turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, he's flirting with making it right now an all Earnhardt Ganassi front row, but he fell back to 3rd about halfway down the back straightaway. Right now Montoya's at a 50.89, Sam Hornish Jr. at a 50.94. Don't believe he's going to make it to the front row with this run.
Nope.
Yes.
He does make it.
A 94. Pulled it out there coming out of the tri-oval. 5 1/1000ths faster than Sam Hornish. How about that?
Really doesn't come as a huge surprise considering that's his teammate up on the pole right now, but I guarantee you Montoya's kind of breathing easy now over that run.
Yeah, I tell you, and he got a good little shot. When he went down on the apron there, it really picked him up just enough speed to move to the front row.
Tonight here on Speed, NASCAR's Camping World Truck Series storms into the Great Plains. The trucks go racing tonight in Kansas, 5:30 Eastern Time. NASCAR on Speed, be there.
And a lot of those guys out there, they're breathing easy right now because Kyle Busch is in Talladega.
Good point. Rowdy. No Rowdy tonight.
But they're going to have quite a points battle going on. I know it's early, but you've got a lot of the past champions fighting for the points lead right now.
There's David Rudiman in a comparison of his seasons. 9th in the standings instead of 30th. 6 top 15s this year, and he's been a threat to win a couple of times. Now, right now, the fastest Toyota is Joey Logano in 9th.
Tell you what, he was a threat to win this race here a couple of years ago, the first year of Michael Waltrip Racing, and the engine expired on him late in the race.
And I'll never forget, and everybody was congratulating him, doing a great job, and man, way to go. And I said, what were you thinking? He said, I don't even know how I got there.
That sounds just like him.
He said, I was in there and I didn't know what to do. He said, I was just hanging on.
He didn't know, but he didn't know what he didn't know. So it all worked out fine.
He's actually very funny. He's a lot like his dad, doesn't he? You know, kind of real dry sense of humor, you know, and he says funny things he doesn't even mean to.
Well, he's from New Jersey. That's, you know, kind of Yogi Berra land up there, at least that part in New Jersey.
He's got a little bit of that in him.
Don't think this is going to be a real sporty first lap for this double zero car, doesn't look like.
That dog's tongue's hanging out.
Yeah. Need to give it another bone or two.
No, 52:40. 52:10. Excuse me. First lap for Rudiman.
And you hear that engine? Now see, Gernhardt's the Ganassi engines. Somebody coming through?
is that your golf cart there? Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Now that is the fastest lap of the 3 Michael Waltrip Racing cars in the first lap. Michael's first lap right now, Michael's 15th was a 52:14.
But when you listen to Montoya and Truex's engine run, it was so much keener and sharper.
Yep.
And this engine's got that kind of like rattle in it, which means that there's not a lot, the distribution or the air going into the carburetor through the restrictor plate is not happy.
What's the RPM difference between the choice of the 2 gears here?
When you're looking at 4 points, that's not a whole lot of RPM. A good rule of thumb is about, what, 10 points a gears, maybe 150, 200 RPMs?
Yeah, I mean, here you're looking at 100 RPM probably, maybe 200 at the most.
So that wouldn't account for it at all. Rudiman is 17th with a 51:45. So Steve's with that other Jersey boy.
Martin Truex Jr. Now, Martin, you've got a great qualifying position right now. You have 3 nationwide series wins. Does that help your confidence, or do you have to take every lap as it comes here at Talladega?
Yeah, I mean, Talladega's a tough place. You know, really, it's just about survival for us. We've run very well here in the past. You know, we won the nationwide races. We've run well in the Cup races, but we can never finish the deal. You know, last year we felt like we had a car capable of winning. We got in a wreck, you know, running second. So it's like, what do you do? Do you race up front all day? Do you take it easy? It seems like, you know, either place we've been wrecked. So hopefully Sunday will be different. We'll get to the end. We've got a great Bass Pro Chevrolet. It's really fast and pretty excited about the race. So just need to get to the end and we'll have a shot at it.
Thanks, Martin.
Appreciate it.
And you know what? You just have to go out there and race as hard as you can race. And the only thing that you need to be aware of and do is that you don't screw up.
Yeah.
That you're not the guy that causes a big wreck. But otherwise, you just got to drive hard. Run up front as best you can, and if something happens, you know you're going to be a victim. Just don't be the one that created it.
And you know, I was talking to Chad Knaus last night as we were taping our NASCAR Performance Show, and he said from a crew chief's perspective, and certainly from a driver too, you can have the fastest race car here. You can have the best race car. You can have the perfect strategy, and you can lead a ton of laps. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a decision that driver makes in about a millisecond on maybe what's the white flag lap coming back to the finish line.
I believe it was 2 years ago here. The 17 car was running 24th on the white flag lap. He finished 3rd.
So here's a guy right here that knows something about maybe not leading the race or being in the top 5 when you see the white flag at a restrictor plate race, and comes back and he won the 500 a couple of years ago and finished 2nd this year, Kevin Harvick.
Shell Point Pennzoil Chevy from Richard Childress Racing, 51.93.
Pretty good lap.
On the first lap. Now the quickest of those cars is Casey Mears, who ran a 93 on his first lap, so Harvick a couple of thousandths quicker. He's going to swap entire race teams with Mears as Richard tries to elevate the performance of both those teams. And Richard had an interesting comment in the paper the other day. He said it's like a marriage that's broken, and yet both partners say they're doing all they can do. And then as soon as they get divorced, the ex-husband goes off to the gym, drops 30 pounds, buys a new sports car, and the wife goes to the tanning booth and the slim down deal. And suddenly they found out they weren't each doing all they could do, but they were doing all they could do together. And that's Childress's philosophy in changing around the mix of these two teams and hoping to improve the performance of both.
I can tell right now he's been spending way too much time watching Dr. Phil.
I can tell you one thing working for him. He's been spending a lot of time on that mountain in Montana, because whenever he's there, he comes back with a new revelation.
Whose team engineer is Dr. Phil? Juan Montoya, Martin Truex, fastest so far in Chevrolets. Hornish's Dodge, and then 4 more Chevys before Carl Edwards, the first Ford, and Joey Logano, the fastest Toyota thus far.
Yeah, we've only had 3 Dodges qualify, but Sam Hornish Jr., he's the only one in the top 20. Now, watching Jeff Burton start his qualifying running the 31 car, this will be the 3rd of the 4 Childress cars. We were talking about Richard Childress. A little bit of an announcement yesterday coming out of the media center. From this Talladega race to when we come back here in the fall, Richard Childress Racing will be celebrating their 40th anniversary in NASCAR. I don't think a lot of our new fans know Richard Childress started a lot of races as a driver, and he actually made his very first start in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series here in the inaugural event at Talladega back in September of 1969, and that race is what actually started Richard Childress Racing.
That's right. Richard came here to run the Grand Am race, the Saturday race, and they asked some of those drivers to stay over and run the Sunday race in case there wasn't a full field of Cup drivers. Some of the Cup drivers boycotted. Childress got to run the race. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And right now, Jeff Burton is right behind his teammate, Kevin Harvick. Burton's 10th.
Krista?
Mike, you had mentioned the fastest Toyota, Joey Logano. And Joey and Denny Hamlin bump drafting a lot in practice yesterday. Were you trying to help the young driver or learn some things for yourself for the line to go in?
A little bit of both. It was mostly to help Joey, but, I was trying to show him what he needed to feel, how much bump he needed to feel in the back, to keep the car behind him attached when they do get to him. So I did that for his benefit. I did it for my benefit, knowing how long I could push somebody without releasing them, without the temperatures going up. So it was kind of a double help for both of us there.
All right, thanks, Denny.
It was fun to watch.
It was that, but I tell you, we sat down with Denny Hamlin a few weeks ago, and there's no question when you talk to Denny, and I think even when you talk to Kyle Busch, besides winning races for themselves, one of their goals at Joe Gibbs Racing is to get that 20 team and Joey Logano up to speed, because they know when they do that, they can benefit from that race team.
Yeah, there's no need in having teammates or 3 teams or 4 teams or 50 teams if you can't gain some knowledge from each other. So you're stronger as a whole than you are as just by being one.
Well, Denny told us there's no question last year with Kyle Busch coming on board, with Tony there and Denny there, that was the strongest that Joe Gibbs has been with his 3 race teams. I think their performance supported that.
Absolutely. Robbie Gordon's sponsor, Jim Beam, has a big write-in campaign to help get Robbie into the All-Star race coming up in May.
And Robbie has a big campaign to have some good runs, because right now he's sitting right there on the edge, 35th in points coming in here, but he has had some really good restrictor plate runs. The last 5 restrictor plate races, he's had 3 top 10 finishes.
He was fast yesterday in practice. in drafting practice. That's not what I'd call a stellar first lap.
Not at all. 52.33. In fact, it's one of the slower first laps. You know, we talk a lot about, you know, Tony Stewart being a driver owner, and I was just thinking, it's really hard to believe, and I didn't really realize it, that Robbie has been a driver owner now. This is his 5th season of being a driver owner with his own race team.
Robbie likes to call his own shots.
He does, but you know what? Everybody likes to help him, because think about it. He's been in a Chevrolet, he's been in Dodge, a Ford, and now he's in a Toyota. So he has connections.
And he's run off-road races in a Hummer, a Volkswagen, and gosh knows what else. Yeah, he gets around. Bobby Labonte carrying new colors on the Ask.com Ford for Hall of Fame racing. 51.77 the first lap. Pretty good first lap.
Yeah, it's working. New paint job's working, boys.
Looking for that top 5, a big announcement out of this race team. Not surprised, we're about a fourth of the way through the season, as Bobby's going to end up 6th quickest. Starting to see some shaking and baking with some teams, especially teams that are not performing. But Ben Leslie, who was Travis Quapple's crew chief in the 28 car when that season started, he is now the crew chief for this 96 car. Todd Parrott has now been moved to competition director.
Can't believe we came to Talladega and you said shake and bake.
Squeezed it right in there, didn't I?
It's Ricky Bobby on line 2.
Good job there. Good effort.
It was 6th place. He is the fastest Ford right now.
It's a good lap.
Well, you know what? If Yates's cars, if they won't run at Daytona and Talladega, they got a lot of work to do, because those cars have always been fast at Daytona and Talladega.
Here at Speed, we're happy to promote NASCAR racing wherever it appears on your TV. And you will see the NASCAR Nationwide Series race today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on ESPN2.
Ryan Newman making his very first restrictor plate Nationwide Series start. He's going to lead them to the green. Sat on the pole driving for Kevin Harvick Incorporated.
Ryan won Atlanta in Kevin's truck last year, and might have a shot at winning restrictor plate race today.
Tell you what, we better keep a close watch on this car right here, because remember, he's got a teammate, Sam Hornish Jr. is at 3rd right now, Kurt Busch in his 2 car.
Okay, let me try this again. We're happy to tell you where NASCAR racing can be found on your TV, even if we have the channel wrong. Today's nationwide race can be seen on ABC TV.
That's right. I saw that.
It's most of them are on ESPN2.
I think
today,
it's one of 2 that they...
It's on ABC. So I hope you enjoy it.
Plus, our boys are at the truck race, Kansas. They'll be on later on this afternoon on Speed Channel, 5:30 Eastern.
Right here on Speed. So
got a lot of racing today.
The lawn can wait till Monday. You got a lot of NASCAR to watch today and tomorrow. Kurt Busch had finished in the top 10 in 11 of his 14 Talladega starts going into last year. Had 2 tough races in the Miller Lite Dodge in 2008 here.
Yeah, that's not the first lap he was looking for, though. No. 52.07. That's about 3/10 off of what Sam Hornish Jr. ran on his first lap.
Kurt is the only active former champion of this series who has not won a restrictor plate race.
I think I'm going to take that a step further. I think he is the best restrictor plate racer we have on the circuit that has not won a restrictor plate race. I mean, he picked up on restrictor plate racing almost from the first time he ran in the Sprint Cup Series back in 2001. Remember what a great run he had in our first broadcast of that 2001 Daytona 500.
Well, am I correct in saying that Penske has only won 1 restrictor plate race?
Right, Ryan Newman, the Daytona 500, and Kurt's a great wingman. He pushed Newman to victory in that one.
Yeah.
And right now he's 16th out of 51.34. Here's Krista.
And hanging out with Matt Kenseth. So, Matt, you won the Daytona 500. So you don't have that car, though. So are you concerned because you had to build a new car, or do you come here with confidence because you won at the last plate track? That was a lot of questions in there. Answer whichever one you want.
You know, you'd probably be a little more concerned if it was the old style car where you spent so much time in a wind tunnel and you could move things around on the body and that. But really, these cars are all so close to the same. I don't really think it matters much. I don't think it'd be hard to duplicate. So, you know, really, if we could win races, they could take our car every week. I'd be fine with that and build new ones. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the race tomorrow. Whenever you get lucky enough to win a plate race, you somewhat look forward to the next one. And this place is always crazy and exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks, Matt.
It's pretty amazing. There's actually some teams in the garage area, they have the car here that they raced at California Speedway back in February, and that's something that was unheard of with our old car.
Seems quite a contradiction, though, for Matt Kenseth to say this place is wild and exciting. Because that just doesn't seem to fit his character. That's not his personality at all, in my mind.
Not a wild and crazy guy.
No.
David Reagan in the UPS Ford for Roush Fenway. Their fastest car right now is Carl Edwards at a 51.10 in 9th place.
This will be the third Roush Fenway car to qualify. We still have Greg Biffle to go in a couple of cars, and then Matt Kenseth, who we just talked to, about 5 or 6 cars away. David has had some really good runs. He's had a great run here in the fall last year, and in his very first Daytona 500 had a great run a couple of years ago.
When I look at that brown paint job, though, you know, I know Jeff Gordon has the Pepsi Challenger, and I love it, but my first race car was that color right there. It was Terminal Transport brown. The reason you paint those, they use that color on those line trucks and all like they did Terminal Transport. It's easier to keep clean. They didn't even when they had the road dirt on them, it didn't show up.
Yeah, you didn't know they were dirty.
So it was just easier to maintain the fleet.
That car's sitting in your shop right now.
Yeah,
right?
I got number 95. I actually
made your first start here.
Yeah, and a few years ago, I actually brought it down here and drove it around the racetrack. I think it was about maybe 10 years ago when I did that.
What engine did that have in it when you ran it?
I originally had a 427 Ford, a tunnel port in it.
Okay.
But the tunnel port couldn't find the good blocks for me, and every time he'd run one, it'd split a cylinder wall. So we switched over to the 429 Ford Hemi later on, and that's what's in it now, the big Hemi engine.
That was the Boss 420.
Oh, yeah. It will barely fit under the hood.
Now, guys, that first lap by David Reagan, pretty good first lap, 51.89. In fact, he's looking at the top 5, and he's looking at becoming the fastest Ford and the fastest Roush Fenway car, it looks like, on this lap.
Yep, he did it, Larry.
He did it.
51.03. He is 5th fastest. He is the quickest Ford.
It makes Jack happy. You don't see that big smile very often.
Tell you what, I saw that big smile on that face last Friday night. You were talking about the Nationwide Series when Greg Biffle won at Phoenix last Friday night. That was Jack's 100th career win as an owner in the Nationwide Series.
So it makes you feel good when you have 4 race cars. If you can just get one of them to run, then you can go tell the other boys, y'all got work to do.
It's when they all are struggling.
It's when none of them will run, you got trouble.
You got big trouble.
That's when they all come and tell you, boss, you got work to do.
Denny Hamlin comes in here 5th in the Sprint Cup standings. He hasn't won, but he has finished 2nd twice this season. Those are 2 of his 4 top 10s. Last week at Phoenix, he was the best of the Toyotas, finishing 6th. He's been the best Toyota 2 of the last 3 races and finished 13th or better here in his last 5 starts.
He had a great race
this
car
season in his last 5 starts.
Had a great race car here in the fall, was leading the race, and had a right front tire go out on him coming off turn 2, and he has said that's the hardest he's ever hit a wall in his career.
Yeah.
He's been here 6 times, has never failed to lead laps in a race here in this series.
Probably no worse feeling in the world for a race car driver and when that right front tire blows out, because you know that you're getting ready to pound the wall, and it scares. Not only do you know you're going to pound the wall, it scares you. When that thing blows out and you have no control over that car and you're headed straight for the fence at 180, 90 mile an hour, you will just close your eyes and pray.
You know, the thing that's the most impressive about Denny, and I know he shared with us, he's very frustrated because he feels like he's not winning the races he should win. But the thing that impresses me about him, and he looks like he's destined again to make the chase for the 4th consecutive year is his ability to finish races. But he told us one time that comes from working on his late model stock car for all those years, because if he wrecked it and he didn't finish the race, 2 things he was pretty sure of. He was going to have to pay for that wreck, and he was going to have to repair that wreck. And he really works hard on finishing races.
Well, just think about my brother last night and his frustration. He's got a team that's got 3 cars on it. He drives one of them. He's got 2 teammates. His 2 teammates are doing really, really well. And Michael's opinion is I should be the one leading the ship, driving the ship, leading the parade, because I'm the senior member of the team. I'm the one that should be telling those other guys how to do and what to do. I think Denny, to some degree, feels the same way. After all, he is the senior member of that team.
That's right. He threw down that gauntlet at the banquet last December.
I think he's going to be the senior member of leading the Joe Gibbs Racing Group in qualifying, 11th quickest for Denny.
Brick when the Hall of Fame opens in 2010. He and his band became Otis Day and the Knights for the movie Animal House.
Well, I'm going to tell you what we better look for also is this qualifying run on Greg Biffle. First lap, 51.65. He looks like he's flirting with the front row to knock Martin Truex Jr. off the outside of row 1. Great run for this 16 car, 2nd quickest.
Pretty good, best P2, buddy.
By what, 8 1,000s?
He misses the pole.
89 to 89.
That's strong. Wonder if that trip he took down Talladega Boulevard last night had anything to do with it.
I don't know. We'll check and see. Nice job, Drew. No, that's not Drew.
Greg.
It's Greg. I'm sorry. Drew's the other guy.
Okay, next would be Steve.
Mike, David Reagan just watched his teammate Greg Biffle bust off a good lap. Good lap for you as well. And David, you're a little bit under the radar. You finished in the top 5 in both races here a year ago.
Our UPS Ford has always been fast here at Talladega, and it's good to see some of the more Ford Fusions up in the top 10. I think Bobby's got a pretty good car. So, 500 miles is a long race, but I feel confident that our UPS team can contend for a win. We really need a good finish. We've been struggling the last few weeks, so a nice top 5 would be almost like a win.
Okay, thank you, David. Best of luck. Let's go to Krista.
Thanks, Steve. Clint Boyer and I have been talking about the nuances of this track, Talladega. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me 3 words to describe Talladega.
Well, this weekend is hot, smoky at night. No, it's just a fun track, man. Very demanding racetrack, very challenging. A lot of thought goes into a good race here and a good finish. I've weathered this storm a few times. I've been in the eye of it a few times, and it's just one of those racetracks where if you get out of here, if you finish, you got the fenders on it and a smile on your face. Otherwise, you've got a frown and you're mad the rest of the day. But just a fun racetrack. I enjoy plate racing, and I like Talladega. The fans are awesome here. BB&T's on a car, so every time BB&T's on a car, seems like we have a good run. So hopefully hold true again this weekend.
Wait, you said hot, smoky at night. I assume you're talking about the infield. I need a third. What's the third?
Well, I don't ever get out of the infield, so I don't know. I have to venture out there to get that third one. I'll let you know later.
Perfect.
Casey Kane is another of those engine change cars.
I know one thing that hot and smoky was the crawfish that we were eating over there last night. Childress had guys from Louisiana, they had a tub full, a barrel full of crawfish that they had cooked and brought down. Had the hot sausage, the corn, the potatoes. Quite a meal.
But you're right, Mike. This 9-car Casey Kane's in the same boat as his teammates A.J. Allmendinger, Elliott Sadler, as well as Reed Sorensen. That'll be qualifying here shortly. These guys are qualifying for pit selection only. All 4 of the Richard Petty cars had to change engines. And what it was, Mike, is tape is the best friend that a race car has on the front end, especially at the speed you're running here. Yeah, you're going to tape them up solid. You can almost see it there below the front bumper, above the splitter. It really reduces the drag, but you want to run as much tape as you can in the race as well. What these teams did, they've been at the proving grounds out in Arizona for about a week trying to perfect running more tape by the way they were cooling the oil in the engine. It proved good at the proving grounds, but when they got here yesterday, the oil temperatures were way up and they had engine problems in all 4 cars.
Well, Kane is the quickest of the RPM cars right now. He is 25th. Ryan Newman joins the SpeedTV.com family. Get exclusive analysis from Newman and fellow SpeedTV.com personalities and industry experts. Log on to SpeedTV.com and look for the latest Voices of Speed columns. Steve Burns.
Very steamy lap for Greg Biffle, and Greg's also said he's going to leave here and go do some drag racing up at the Z-Max drag strip at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to go do the Pink Show tonight on Speed Channel, and excited about that lap. That was a great lap, 3 and 4 division. These guys here work so hard on restrictor plate, the engine shop, and Tom Gann, everybody at the engine shop just works so hard, and that's a lot of this speed of the engines and the bodies in the body shop, and these guys, every last detail, just paying attention, and I'm really excited when you got a restrictor plate car that runs that fast.
Well, you've been close, so stay off the wall here, right?
Yeah, stay off the wall and just get good guys to bump draft with that, keep the cars going straight, and we're going to be there at the end. I'm really excited. It's been a while since I've had a car this fast restrictor plate racing, so 2004 Daytona 500 was my last time.
Good luck today and tomorrow.
Thank you.
Is he wearing braces?
I didn't notice.
I think he is.
But he's trying to erase a streak of DNFs, 5 of the last 6 races here.
The reason I asked about the braces is because a lot of guys here used to wear a mouth guard, for the because you kind of rattled around and bounced around a lot here. I just didn't know if that was some sort of something he had done for here or if that's permanent.
We're told those are braces.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Reed Sorensen is also qualifying for pit selection. He will also have to start at the back like the other RPM Dodgers.
Now, Reed spent most of the week, they were fighting weather a little bit, but at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway trying to do more tire testing for Goodyear up there as we prepare to race there in August. Of course, that was probably one of the biggest debacles of 2008 was the tire situation, but you got to tip your hat to Goodyear. They've worked very hard and spent a ton of money rectifying the issues that we had there.
That might be the biggest debacle we've had ever. When you go to a racetrack that as important as Indy is and to have the kind of trouble they had up there, that was just unheard of.
And you know what was amazing, Daryl, and I think we've come so far with this car, but we've come so far with the tire for this car, is I think they went there just way too hard, because right after the race they went there and put the Phoenix Richmond tire, a short track tire, and tripled the laps that they were able to get out of a set of tires versus what they actually raced there.
So that would have been 15 laps.
That's better than 5.
Nice run for Reed Sorensen. He is now the fastest of the RPM cars. He's 25th. Krista?
Mike, it was in this race in the fall that pretty much kind of changed Regan Smith's life. I don't know if that's good or bad with that finish that happened. When you come back now, do you think of memories of that race and maybe what could have been different?
Yeah, I think I've thought of memories of that race about 1 million times. What could have been, should have been, whatever. I'm just happy to get back on the racetrack and get that last 100 yards of the race out of my memory, and we'll think about what's going to happen on Sunday. And first off, we got to get the National Day of Prayer car into the race, so we're going to focus on that right now. I don't know how much speed we're going to have. We'll see here in a minute, but just looking forward to Sunday.
All right, good luck.
Smith was the first car to the flag, but he was below what is now the double yellow line. That's out of bounds, and NASCAR penalized him for that pass. He did not win the race. Matt Kenseth has had certainly the most interesting of seasons. It started out with a win in the sport's biggest event, the Daytona 500, and followed it up 1 week later with a win in California. It looked like he might run the table, but now he is just 12th in Sprint Cup points, hanging on to a spot in the chase because he's finished 23rd or worse in half the races this season.
What has killed them has been the shorter, flatter tracks. They were terrible at Bristol. I know that's not a flat track, but that's a short track. They were terrible at Martinsville, and they may have been the worst car that there was at Phoenix last week. Finished 27th. So the short tracks, the flat tracks has been their Achilles heel.
Talladega hasn't been too kind to him either. He does not have a top 25 finish in his last 3 races here, although he has a best finish of 3rd and a best starting spot of 7th.
Now he has 3 teammates in the top 11. Of course, we just talked to Greg Biffle a moment ago, who's 2nd. David Reagan is 6th. Carl Edwards is 11th. And then Jamie McMurray, the other Roush Fenway car, is 23rd.
It's kind of funny when the season started off, you know, and his crew chief, Drew Blickensdorfer, that we had talked about at Daytona and then right back again in California. And all of a sudden, I mean, he fell off the map and so did the team. So we haven't seen much of these guys. Maybe this is the weekend they can get it going.
Now that's a pretty good first lap for Matt Kenseth, 51.89, but we're not going to see that pickup because he didn't run at the top of the racetrack on lap 1.
But I like the way this tracker keeps moving to the left, Larry. He has picked up versus the pole sitter Montoya in every segment of this racetrack.
Yeah, he's getting there.
Keeps getting better and better. It definitely looks like it's going to be a top 10 run.
Oh, he's getting there. He's moving in the right direction, as Mike said.
Well, he ran about the same first lap as David Reagan, his teammate. It looks like he's just going to be just behind David Reagan. He ends up 9th quickest. 2/100 slower than David.
Well, that still leaves us with 4 Fords in the top 10, which is a good showing for the Blue Oval. Let's face it, since Matt Kenseth's 2 wins, this has not been a banner season for Ford, and kind of nice to see that turn around and go the other way here in qualifying.
But I'm telling you, when you think about a racetrack that's 2.66 miles in length and taking 51 seconds to go around here, when I look right now at our 4 cars that are 6th, 7th, 8th, 9, a 51.034, a 51.042, an 043, and an 052, that is unbelievable that the times can be that close around this big of a racetrack.
Well, it is, and it is and it isn't, in my mind. When you dictate what gear you can run, when you dictate what springs you can run, when you dictate what shocks you can run, you know, where are you going to get an advantage from?
Well, I think it almost goes back to what you said earlier, Darrell, when you talk about the teams with this carburetor restrictor plate that almost cuts the horsepower in half. You know that if you make a gain of 1 or 2 horsepower, you're going to see it on the stopwatch.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is even though that's 3 Fords and a Chevrolet, that the horsepower must be awfully tight and close on these engines.
Yeah, if you talk about 5 or 6 horsepower in an 850 horsepower engine, you don't even know it. But when you talk about 5 or 6 horsepower in a 450 horsepower engine, now we're talking.
And they'll come out of the engine room celebrating.
Now we're talking.
David Stremme in the Penske Dodge on track. His teammate Kurt Busch is 20th right now with a 51.34. Now after Stremme and Clint Boyer, we move to knockout qualifying, and it's going to be a little more exciting than usual. Not because of who gets knocked out. There's only 2 cars going home in this 45 car field, but because of the impound situation, a lot of these cars that are go or go home are tuned up for 2 laps, a lot more so than a lot of cars that we've seen so far.
Well, when you think about the 78 car, Regan Smith, and the National Day of Prayer car, that car sat on a pole here last year for that very reason. Full blown,
kaboom. Talk about full blown. Now that's our understanding is that Stremme and Busch do not have the same generation Dodge engine as Richard Petty Motorsports, but something went wrong after Stremme crossed the line 31st quickest.
And that was a pretty sporty first lap for David Stremme at a 51.82.
Well, it was. That would have been right there in the top 10, I believe.
That was just his first lap. He did not get to complete lap 2. And they're going to have to look over the track for that oil down.
And so I think we can add this car here, even though he was going to be at the back with that first lap anyhow. We can add this car to the list of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars that will have to go to the rear of the field because they will change this engine.
And one good thing about it, he's off the racing surface pretty much on the apron,
But now if you're Kurt Busch and his team, what do you do? Every other Dodge here has gone kaboom except for Busch and Sam Hornish, who's poised for the best start of his Cup career. If they pull that engine, he's got to go to the back.
Well, and just remember, you can't just pull an engine. There has to be something wrong with that engine. You can't just change because you think something might be wrong.
I understand, Larry, but I think we've had, what, 5 of the 7 Dodge engines have blown up, or in the case of the other 2 RPM cars, we're going to blow up. You just got to wonder that if things are that bad, whether NASCAR would allow
I think so.
Either Busch or Hornish the opportunity to change just based on the odds.
But I believe what I learned this morning about the 4 Richard Petty Motorsports cars, I don't think what's happened to this 12 car has nothing to do with the engines of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars. Certainly when you've got team cars, anytime you lose an engine anywhere, there's a concern, are we going to have the same problem? But I would almost bet that failure there is going to be a one-off deal.
Yeah, and I mean, they're two different generations of engines anyway.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that the Penske cars have the new engine in them. They have all year long. And then the Petty cars have the older version of the Dodge engine.
Richard Petty and Dale Inman.
Dale Inman looking.
Boy, that brings back a lot of memories.
Well, let me see now. If Fiat takes over Chrysler Corporation and Dodge, what will they be putting under the hood of those cars then? Catch the Cash All-Star Sweepstakes, now on Speed. Just answer this question at speedtv.com and you can qualify to win today's prize. Don't forget to watch the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race May 16th for your chance to win $25 grand in cold hard cash. Log on to speedtv.com today and register for the Catch the Race, Catch the Cash All-Star Sweepstakes.
It's a nice looking ride.
A little hip hop to it there.
It's turkey walking.
A little bump and run. At least it's not chicken dancing.
It might be doing the chicken dance. I don't know.
Have you ever heard of just anything
quite as
interesting,
odd as that?
Yeah.
Odd.
Tomorrow, the folks at Talladega Superspeedway as part of the pre-race. I wonder if this has anything to do with the get a new grilled chicken free KFC on Monday thing, but they're going to do the chicken dance in the grandstand here to set a Guinness World Record.
I don't know. Somehow or another it has Hammond. Every time I hear that, I think about Hammond.
Oh, it has Hammond written all over it.
I'm going to use a famous DW quote here. I don't have a good feeling about this.
I just don't feel really good about this.
Krista.
Feeling. And unfortunately, David Stremme did not have a good feeling about his race car after that engine blew up. That's what we assume happened, right? The oil's coming through the track. Tell us what happened, and obviously a lot of concern. You got a lot of crew guys from the other Penske organizations down here.
Yeah, the Scott Croyer and all the guys in the engine shop been working real hard, really on the older motor. We figured in July we were going to run a new one, but they've done a great job making great power. You know, we felt like in practice we were really good, and just kind of no indication the bottom end let go there. So these guys do a really good job here at the Penske organization. They're already working on other stuff. I feel good about the backup motor. I started last year in Dario's car, and we end up leading. So, you know, the starting position, the thing that dictates is not getting in that wreck. But these guys work very hard each week, everybody at the Penske organization, and this is just what happens when you try to push the limits. But I feel like we got a good piece sitting in the trailer too.
So, David, you guys were still using the older Dodge engine then?
Yeah, that's something that they had chose to do for this Talladega race. The newer motor is a lot better, efficient-wise as far as power and cooling. We just felt for the restrictor plate race, there's a lot of stress on a lot of parts, and we didn't feel like it was ready. They're hoping, and I think it will be ready for July, which is good because we've got something in our pocket. We've just been kind of waiting and developing it, but. You know, this whole motor, they just keep wearing it out. It's you know, been around for 4 or 5 years now, and there's only so much you can keep doing with it. You know, like you look at the other manufacturers, they keep getting updated motors, and we're just trying to compete. But these guys do a great job at the Penske organization, and we'll just keep moving forward in our Penske Dodge.
David, is that Penske organization as a whole? Then we saw a lot of the guys. Pat Trison, one of the first guys down here to talk to you. Everyone's on the old motor for Talladega?
Yeah, everybody's old motors, everybody's same thing. Actually, Sam and them put a lot of I should say some of the geometry that we run in his car, and he qualified good. So we were looking forward to a good run there. You know, we run like a 50-75 yesterday in practice, and I thought if we could run that, we'd be on the pole. But it was really good in draft, and that's the thing that we looked at. At Daytona, we felt like we couldn't ever get an opportunity to win or lead. Our cars handled well there. Well, here, you throw handling out the window, it's just all power. And like I said, I felt like they've done a great job in engine shop, and just a little failure here, but we'll move into Sunday.
All right, David, talking about the stress on the parts of the motor right now. Mike, a lot of stress on the Penske organization.
I would say so, Krista. Now, Stremme's lap, the one lap that he did put down before he put oil down on the track, was within 6/100ths of a second of Sam Hornish's first lap. So if he'd had the same pickup, Stremme would be in the top 5.
But I feel really good about, or not really good, but that does answer a question that Larry and I have been asking. We've asked each other off the air. are they actually running the, because restrictor plate engines are so one-offs that it makes sense that they're not running the new engine because they probably have an inventory of the restrictor plate motors.
And that's kind of the same agenda that Chevrolet did when the R07 engine came in. They still ran the SP2 for a full season at the 4 restrictor plate races till they had enough time and felt good enough about it to run it with the carburetor restrictor plate.
It's a lot of development in these restrictor plate engines, a lot of hours, a lot of money, a lot of dyno time, and so to develop a new engine would take a long time.
But I believe what he said with that first lap, he may not have been on the pole, but he was going to be up there in the top 5, I think.
I agree. All right, Clint Boyer next, and then it's knockout qualifying.
This yellow one is for my postpartum depression. This one, sciatica, whatever that is. I got these after my hysterectomy, or my prostatectomy, slimectomy. And this guy is for the pain from my last hip replacement. And this orange one is...
For teens, getting drugs can be as easy as opening your medicine cabinet.
There's really probably only maybe 10 people in the world.
Just west of East Aboga as they continue to put down Speedy Dry, work it in, and get it up from David Stremmy's engine. Clint Boyer has to qualify, and then we move into knockout qualifying with 10 drivers in search of those 8 positions. And there they are. You know, we've talked about teams that are gone from the track recently. Like the 28 and like the DEI number 8. But stop on that number 4 right there, because Morgan McClure Racing returns to Sprint Cup racing for the first time in quite a while. They were a victim of loss of sponsor and a bit of the economic contraction in the sport, but here they are with Eric McClure trying to make this race here at Talladega.
Yeah, I mean, when you would come to Daytona or Talladega with the carburetor restrictor plate, but honestly, a lot of racetracks, you knew one of the cars you were going to have to beat was that 4 car. With Sterling Marlin, with Ernie Irvin driving it, they won here 4 times. They won the Daytona 500 3 times. In the 90s, they were the team to beat.
Runt Pittman was their engine builder, and they found a way to manage the exhaust flow in their engine, and gosh knows what else they did. But they sure had a real interesting exhaust system with that X-pipe, and the car sounded like it was screeching. It was like you were dragging a herd of cats down the speedway when that car went by.
Well, you know, a lot of times back in the day, you'd do something to one area of the car so people wouldn't be looking at another area of the car.
And that was one of them.
And you know, the crew chief on that car for so many years was Tony Glover, who is now one of the competition directors over there at Earnhardt Ganassi. And like I say, they had their act together when it would come to restrictor plate racing.
I tell you who almost won at Daytona in that car, I think it may have been the 4th of July race, was Rick Wilson.
Yes.
He almost won a race in that car.
One of those Earnhardt Ganassi Chevys is quickest so far. Juan Pablo Montoya is fastest, as we still have 11 cars to go.
And I think the biggest unknown, we talked about it at the top of the day, is when we look at these 10 go or go homers, how aggressive has some of them gotten with their qualifying package. You know, Darrell mentioned it a while ago, go back a year ago, Joe Nemechek driving the 78 car. Those guys got very aggressive. Remember, they got Hendrick engines in that car.
Well, here are the go or go homers that have come out for knockout qualifying, but time to play Stump the Stars. We'll put our crack research team on this one. 7 drivers have their only Cup victory here at Talladega. Now, if Montoya wins the pole, how many others will he join who have won their only career pole at Talladega?
You know,
by the way, the
what
list
scares
of
me
7
about
winners.
your statistician over there? His head was going back and forth and up and down at the same time.
Well, maybe he has a career in politics ahead of him.
Bobblehead slob.
Oh, and while you're at it, folks, if you're playing along at home, see how many of those 7 past winners at Talladega whose only Cup victory came here, and we'll give you the list on our Fox telecast tomorrow.
One of them will race in that race tomorrow.
Pardon me?
One of those 7 will race in the race tomorrow.
That's right. And one of them was on the air on Speed yesterday. Our coverage of NASCAR's weekend in Talladega continues tomorrow, beginning with NASCAR race day on Speed. And then you'll see the Sprint Cup Series race here on Fox, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by NASCAR Victory Lane right back here on Speed as our coverage of NASCAR continues all weekend. Tickets available at Lowe's Motor Speedway for the NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race. Call the number on your screen or visit the website. Saturday, May 16th is the date. And tickets are still available for tomorrow's Cup race here at Talladega.
Weather forecast is absolutely gorgeous. I think spring has finally sprung.
Montoya wondering if he will wait it out and have the pole for tomorrow's race here. 11 cars are left to qualify. In sun-drenched central Alabama, it's going to hit 90 degrees today.
Bring your sunscreen.
You bet.
Come on out.
Yeah, all the oil spilled won't be on the track. Bring your own shade.
Or bring your umbrella and come on out.
You know, Mike and Darrell, we don't really get an opportunity a lot to explain the why in depth about things, but we've talked about this carburetor restrictor plate several times today, and why do we race it here in Daytona? You know, because these are 2 tracks where these cars run wide open, and if you go back to the race here in the spring of 1987, the entire field qualified over 200 miles per hour. The average speed of the 43 cars that started that race was 207 miles per hour. About lap 17, Bobby Allison blew an engine coming through the trioval. And he ran over his own debris and cut his left rear tire down, got airborne, and almost got into the grandstands here about the flag stand. It was the wake-up call to our sport. We're too fast here in Daytona. Thus, we led to the carburetor restrictor plate.
Now, the back of Bobby's car got a little bit up in the air, and it hung the back bumper on the fence and took out several hundred feet of catch fence all the way down through the starter stand. It was a very exciting moment.
But just remember, this isn't the first time we had restrictor plates. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, we were running restrictor plates here with the big block engines. And big block engines were actually restricted as they brought the small block engine in to the sport. In order to give them some parity, they took the big engine, restricted it, and then let the guys run the unlimited engine as a small block.
And then that led to some other things that NASCAR did to keep these cars on the ground when they get around backwards. In fact, if you tune in after the truck race tonight on Speed, Chad Knaus, Doug Richard, myself will explain all of those aero pieces on NASCAR Performance.
Clint Boyer is the last of the top 35 drivers who are locked into the field to qualify. Here's the BB&T Chevrolet as Boyer comes in here 6th in Sprint Cup points. Finished 2nd at Las Vegas. The best of his 4 top 10 finishes. He's been running at the finish in the last 81 races.
His 3 teammates are up there in the top 15 right now. Casey Mears is 11th, Kevin Harvick is 14th, Jeff Burton is 15th, so all pretty solid. It's Clint's first lap. Real good first lap for Clint here, 51.67.
Wow. This has got big time written on it here, boys.
Absolutely. And you can see the tracker just keeps getting better and better right now, sitting on the outside of the front row, halfway down the back straightaway, lost a little ground about a third of the way down.
I think it's because it's so tight right there, Larry. That tractor's bouncing around as it does sometimes. This is going to be a great run.
Darrell, it keeps coming down a little bit.
He's inching over there.
You know, he hasn't started better than 19th all year. That's about to change.
Darrell, it lost ground in 3 and 4. It's like it just didn't get through there nice and free, and that's where it lost those couple of spots, it looked like.
Let's see if he pulls back in here off coming down. Oh, yeah, actually a little bit more. still a nice run.
5th for Boyer, 50.95. 3 Chevys in the top 5, along with Biffle and Hornish.
I tell you what, I've never sat in that position as a driver that Montoya's sitting in, but I've sat there many times as a crew chief. I think back to the 1995 Daytona 500 with Dale Jarrett, where we went out very early, set fast time. This 2.5 hours seems like 2.5 days when you're sitting on the pole at a place like this.
What kind of drives you crazy as a driver? They say, oh, you don't have to worry about him. He can't beat you. You worry about, and right now, you know, if in normal qualifying session, you'd say these next 10 cars, they really none of them can beat you.
Wave to us, Juan. Come on, wave.
Except here at Talladega, where we don't know what these guys are going to be up to qualifying.
That's right, because this is an impound race. Now, we're told that some of these teams may have disconnected the alternator belt or the rear end pump belt, done some other things they're going to have to come in and fix on the pace lap for max speed. Now, here's Michael McDowell from Phoenix. Dave Blaney has driven this number 66 car for Prism Motorsports since Terry Labonte ran it in the Daytona 500, but Blaney has a family commitment this weekend, so McDowell is in the car and Blaney will be back in it.
And I think that family commitment is his son Ryan Blaney is racing somewhere.
But now this car yesterday made some single car qualifying runs, and his best lap was a 52.18. So they're going to have to do a whole lot to get this bad boy up to pole quality.
Yeah, based on that practice, Mike, most of these 10 go-or-go-homers did focus on single runs.
Right.
It appeared that Michael McDowell and the 4-car Eric McClure that we showed earlier sitting on pit road, those seem to be the 2 cars that they've got to find some speed.
If he's 32nd right now, that's going to be a pretty sporty first lap. That's going to be equal to what Stremme ran. So if he gets the usual pickup, he could be in the low 20s.
I don't think he's going to get the usual pickup, though.
Yeah.
Well,
51.80.
That's not bad.
It's not a bad first lap at all.
But he didn't really corkscrew it either. I mean, he left a little bit on the table there on that coming on that first lap.
Well, turns 1 and 2, he was way up by the wall, but he's
then he
lower
kind
down.
of dropped down a little bit in 3 and 4, which is going to give us a false indicator of just how good he's going to be.
But I think this is the biggest unknown about this qualifying session. You know, normally we don't anticipate at most racetracks that our go-or-go-homers are going to really rip off a possible pole-winning lap. But I mentioned it earlier, how aggressive did these 10 teams get with qualifying orders? He's really not going to pick up a whole lot.
He didn't.
Fell way off.
Think about it. Yesterday, his best time was 52.18, so that's a nice pickup from his single car run yesterday. But I'm not sure it's enough to get him where he wants to be.
Nope, half a second better than practice, but he's 31st overall. 2 drivers go home from this group. Now, if Montoya hangs on, he will join a very short list of drivers who have their only career pole at Talladega, according to Bill Sloboda, who looked this up. Travis Kvapil is the only other driver to have a Talladega pole but never win a pole anywhere else in Sprint Cup racing.
And that was just recently that he sat on the pole here.
Joe Nemechek has 4 poles at this racetrack, including this race last year.
I'm getting the word that Juan Pablo Montoya maybe got tired of us watching him, so he went inside the motor coach to watch qualifying. A little cooler inside the motor coach too, I'm sure.
He's going in to change clothes, boys. He's getting to see how he looks for his photo op.
Joe was a busy man yesterday. He did the 2 practice sessions here, and then he hopped on an airplane to go back to Mooresville, North Carolina to join his 9-year-old daughter at a father-daughter dance last night. And he came back here this morning.
Their school, that's a big annual event at Davidson Day, and I'm sure he and Blair had a great time. And here he's back to qualify this car and run the nationwide race.
I went to a father-daughter dance with my 11-year-old daughter, Kendall, back in January. Those little girls like they're like dancing machines. It's like I look at her and say, can we not take a little bit of a break here for a second?
You were a one and done kind of guy.
Woo.
Yeah.
Solid 3 hours, never stopping.
Joe's going to have to pick it up. This lap right here is just not showing a lot of speed. 35th. 51.90 for Joe.
But you did see he ran pretty high, Mike, and you can see all the way to the bottom. Just look at this tracker now.
Wow.
Right now, it looks like they've gotten pretty aggressive with this setup. Felipe Lopez, Derek Finley in that group.
He just said, look at this tracker now. And Juan Montoya's head poked out of his motor coat.
Well, now it's tailing off.
This is going to be a great run for Joe. The only 2 races they have missed, and they just barely missed the Daytona 500 on speed, but they didn't race their way in. They missed Texas a few weeks ago.
Well, on a single car run yesterday, he ran a 51.16.
Daryl, I get a feeling with you seeing this thing losing like that, it's maybe getting a little too hot on water temperature possibly.
Could be a little hot, and I haven't noticed, have we picked up any sort of wind that could be affecting these cars?
Joe Nemechek is 14th overall. He will certainly race here tomorrow. Scott Riggs driving for Tommy Baldwin in an unsponsored Toyota. He's on a flyer. His first lap of 51.94. And that second lap flirted with the top 10 and now drops back just a bit. Well, it's going to be solid.
But you just think about this. Put this in perspective. Joe Nemechek ran a 51.10, and we figure he's pretty full-blown qualifying, close to it. Think about Montoya, what he would run if he was full-blown qualifying.
Yeah.
He'd be in the 50, probably flat range. 50-20 range.
Chad Canals told me, and of course Chad I'm sure is not very happy with his qualifying run, but he told me he felt like that they were leaving about 3/4 of a second at least on the table.
Wow.
By things that they're not doing because they're having to qualify with their race setup.
And it is an impound race, so the teams cannot touch the cars after qualifying except for air pressure, very limited things. Now Riggs is 18th with a 51.23. That's very solid. And it does lock Joe Nemechek into the field. Only 2 drivers go home. It would have been 3. Todd Bodine, or Jeff Bodine, was entered in the Larry Gunselman car, but without a sponsor. The Gunselman organization decided they could not afford the freight for the engine lease for this event, which can run as high as 6 figures. So they thought they better concentrate on the regular non-restrictor plate races, and they'll be back in action next week at Richmond. David Gilliland for the Racers Group, TRG Motorsports. Now they're without a sponsor this week, but decided that they would come to Talladega and try to continue to work their way back into the top 35.
This car could run pretty good because it has those Earnhardt Childress racing engines in them.
Steve.
Well, Joe Nemechek, the good news is you're locked in, but just heard you say you thought you could go faster.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. They said that the lap tracker had us on pole till we came off the 2, and down the backstretch it just seemed like it slowed down a little bit. So I don't know if it's a wind or who knows in these plate races. I mean, there's so many things we do in the garage to try and pick up speed. If one of them isn't quite right, it can hurt it. So just got to thank all my guys still trying to find sponsorship for our car. Get a partner on here for a small amount, and we'll give them a good show on Sunday.
Joe, is it a fine line? Can you be too aggressive? Obviously, you have to make the show, but can you be too aggressive and hurt your race performance?
Well, there's certain things you can do that'll definitely are more risky than others. And if you go a little too far, just like with your oils, if you go a little too far, you're going to end up burning a gear or transmission or something like that up. I don't think we went that far. We're trying to be conservative on all that because we're planning on running a whole race. So I don't know. It's just one of those things. You go through, you got to get all your height set. You got to put NASCAR's restrictor plate on. You got all the things that have to make it even for everybody. And evidently something went wrong somewhere a little bit.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
I think Joe might be right, though, because when I keep looking for a flag to get a judge off of it, it looks like he might have a little headwind coming down the back, particularly about halfway down, sort of a crossing, maybe into turn 3, a little bit of a wind over there, and that does affect these cars big time.
And David Gilliland, he's flirting there. You see the flag, that's down in turn 4. And for most of this qualifying session, it's been hanging straight down, but it's starting to move around a little bit. But David Gilliland, he keeps flirting with that little green line, which that little green line represents Scott Riggs in the 36 car. So this could be good news for Scott Riggs.
David's going to be okay. 23rd with a 51.30. That does lock Riggs into the race. So Scott will race here tomorrow for 500 miles. And Gilliland would be the next driver to lock in based on what happens with Scott Speed, Eric McClure, Regan Smith, Max Pappas, Jeremy Mayfield, and Brad Keselowski.
Now I'll be anxious to see if Scott Speed does the same thing that his teammate Brian Vickers did. Remember, Brian Vickers was one of the cars that ran real low on lap 1 and just didn't pick up that much from lap 1 to lap 2.
Speed right up against the outside wall on his get up to speed lap, as everyone else has been. 6 drivers to go, 2 go home, 8 qualify, no champions provisional in play. And right now, the 2 slowest of the 4 that have gone are Gilliland and McDowell. We're pretty sure Gilliland's speed is good enough to get him in the race. McDowell is going to be a bit nervous as these next 6 cars run.
Scott had a rough speed weeks. He was a victim of a lot of the situations, but he had to crash in the Budweiser shootout, to crash in the Gatorade Dual qualifying race, and then got caught up in a wreck in the Daytona 500 as well.
One ex-Formula 1 driver on pole right now and one ex-Formula 1 driver on track.
I guess the way you run a car at Talladega is it's not crabbed out, it's tucked in.
Okay.
You got the back of it tucked in here to get the downforce out of the car, whereas the other racetracks we crab the back out or skew the back out to get downforce on the car.
Well, in almost all cases, old car, new car, it works against each other. If you increase downforce, which is what you want at 20 of our 22 racetracks, you hurt the drag. But if you help the drag, you hurt the downforce. So there's, as I always say, there's no free lunch in aero.
And you can see this thing's pretty well tucked in with the back of the car, rear of the car kind of turned to the left just a little bit. And what you're trying to do is hide that rear blade. In this case, a wing. You're just trying to hide that from the wind.
Hey, that's a really good first lap. That is a faster first lap than both of our front row drivers, Montoya and Biffle. So Scott Speed is in a hurry.
And that tracker just keeps coming down. And Mike, he did run the high line on lap 1. So that's a really good first lap.
Scott Speed's going to lock himself into this show.
No question. He keeps creeping toward the top 5, so he's definitely working on becoming the fastest Toyota.
Sweeps off a 4. Let's see if he cuts the tri-oval down to the apron. Right against the grass. It's going to be a great lap.
It's going to be top 10 for sure. 7th.
In the hot tip.
Good lap.
Cutting down on that apron.
50.98 for Scott Speed. He will race tomorrow. So 5 drivers to go, and Gilliland and McDowell still in the bottom 2. We know. NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying on speed is presented by Subway, home of the famous always made fresh $5 footlong. Subway, eat fresh. And brought to you in part by True Value, the tools, products, and expert advice for all your project needs. True Value. Start right, start here.
You know, Mike, if you make this race, if you just make this race, start 43rd, you're going to take home 80 grand. And that's if you finish dead last. The winner's going to take home a little over $250,000. And they got a $6.1 million purse here. So it's a good paying race.
Eric McClure hopes to be in it in the Morgan McClure number 4, trying to make the team's first start since November 2007, but his lap of 52.03 may not be quick enough. He will lock David Gilliland into the race. Mark Martin drove for Morgan McClure here in 1983 and finished 4th, or finished 8th in the number 4.
Which was the year after Mark's rookie season, that he ran the full schedule driving his own car. But right now, with 4 cars left to go, The practice from yesterday, it looks like it was not deceiving because the two slowest cars in both of them were Michael McDowell, Eric McClure, and that's what we have right now.
I'm going to be interested. This little car right here is a good car to watch because, you know, he sat on the pole here last year. And the National Day of Prayer car, that's Shirley Dobson's organization. Her husband, Dr. Dobson, he has the focus on the family, but they're two different organizations. So National Day of Prayer is an institution all of its own.
You know, this team last week at Phoenix, they qualified ninth and showed it wasn't a fluke. The first third of the race ran right up there in the front. Once things started happening on pit road, they got behind, but they had a really good car last week at Phoenix.
And the owner of this car, Barney Visser, he is a big supporter of the National Day of Prayer program.
To make the race, Regan Smith has to beat a 51.66.
Well, yesterday he ran a 51.19, and that was a single car run.
Right. Although in his interview earlier, he said he wasn't sure if they had enough speed.
Well, let me tell you what they're going to do. I think they're going to lock themselves in on lap 1. That this is going to show you how good of a lap they're going to have.
But he's not rim riding. I mean, he's got a nice, he's up there middle of the upper part of the racetrack, but he's not up against the wall. So we're probably going to, this first lap might be a little deceiving.
Right, he may not pick up as much on his second lap. This is going to be a great first lap. Again, it's going to go ahead and lock him into the show. The second lap is just going to be a bonus for him.
30th.
51.45 on lap 1, by far the fastest first lap.
And if he'd have been a little higher and run that lap, Larry, I'd be jumping up and down for him right now. I'm just not sure if we're going to see that great big pickup that we've seen from the other cars.
No, but he's a quarter of a second faster than Montoya's first lap, and Montoya's on pole. Here we go to the left.
Just keeps coming down, going down that back straightaway.
The slick piece when it'll pick up speed down the straightaway like that.
Now, as long as he doesn't lose speed through 3 and 4, we'll see if he can pick up some of that speed coming down the front straightaway.
Lost a little bit off of 4 there.
Well, and Darrell, I think we've made a note that I think the wind's playing with these cars just a little bit now, but this is going to be a great run for this 78 car. I think he will be the fastest of the go-homers.
6th for Regan Smith, 50.96.
Very nice, very nice.
This is the pole by less than 1/10 of a second.
And the car from about turn 3 on lost a little bit of speed all the way down, as if things had heated up to the point of not making quite as much power.
And this car on the pole last year, here we are 6th today. This driver who could have easily won his first race right here last year.
Right.
In this car, they get everything changed over here on their first caution flag, first pit stop. That car has a shot at winning this race.
Guarantee it does.
Steve?
With Scott Speed, Scott 8th overall, great lap by you and your team. Talk about the effort that it takes, the emotion that's involved, everything that goes into cutting that big lap here.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously the guys at the shop, do all the work. This is the one place that they go that really, they're making the biggest difference. Our job's pretty easy. We keep it flat, keep it on the inside. But I did learn something very valuable this week, and I learned that it's probably not very wise for the driver to bet the crew chief on what kind of lap time the thing's going to do.
I saw Jimmy bring his wallet over here.
I'm down $200, so that wasn't wise. I don't think I'll do that again.
Down 200, but you may be up 80 grand for making the show, so that's a good deal.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Good lap for Speed. He is 8th right now with 3 drivers to go. And still the bottom 2, Michael McDowell and Eric McClure. Road racer Max Pappas.
See, here's where drivers are really good at math. Let's just think about this. Owner probably spends a couple $100 grand to come down here and run this race. Pays 80 grand to start. The driver gets half of the 80 grand. So the owner spends 250,000. The car wins 80 grand if it makes the race. The driver gets half of the 80 grand. He doesn't have to pay half of what it costs to get out here. Drivers are pretty smart when you think about it.
And I think the moral of this story, for an owner to break even, he's pretty much got to get a part of that winner's share.
That's right. Or have a whole lot of the space on that car filled up with decals from paying customers.
Now, Max Pappas is attempting to make his first start in anything here at Talladega. He's only run at Daytona and Talladega once. He ran an IROC race at Daytona a couple years ago.
How'd that turn out? Not too good, as I recall.
Don't think it was a good outing.
It was a lid lifter. Geico Toyota, first lap for Pappas.
They've made both the races they've attempted this year. They made Las Vegas and they made the race in Texas a few weeks ago.
52.03, that should allow him to run pretty much about the same time as Gilliland on his second lap.
Yeah,
so
because
top 30.
He pretty well was up against the wall on that first go around.
The little green chiclet right here, right now, the little green stripe that represents Michael McDowell, who right now is 36th at a 51.66. So I think Max is going to be in good shape to make his third start of 2009. And then Max, what are you going to do then?
Oh boy, hadn't seen anything like this, I can guarantee you. So it will be a learning experience.
I think you're right, Mike. He's going to run about the same speed as David Gilliland, first and second lap.
And, a good lap for Max, 27th, 51.55, very close to Gilliland. He is in the show. But Max didn't get to do any drafting practice. He was doing single car runs, so tomorrow should be really interesting for him. Jeremy Mayfield about to complete his run in the big red Toyota. First lap of 52.02. See if Jeremy can lock in. He's got to beat McDowell at 51.66. He does. 51.31 for Mayfield. He is 26th. He is in the show with 1 to go. And Eric McClure goes home. Let's check with Steve Burns.
Mike Regan-Smith and I talking about, I said, how aggressive are you? And he said, I'm on a need-to-know basis. But that was a great lap.
Yeah, it was a real good lap. I'm proud of Jay Guy, all the guys on the French Row Chevy. We got National Day of Prayer in the car this week, so that's cool. And normally qualifying at Talladega, it's not a big deal. You're not nervous, you know, whatever. And I got off turn 4, and my knees started shaking a little bit. My hands were clenched up because I knew I wanted to go down to the apron, but I wasn't quite sure if I was supposed to or not. So I went ahead and did it anyway. But looking forward to Sunday. I think we're going to have a good race car.
All right, thanks, Regan.
Thanks, Steve. Brad Keselowski will be our final qualifier.
That's funny right there.
It is. That's good.
Last time he went on the apron, it didn't work out so good for him.
Not at all.
You know what I felt bad about that? You know, he ended up finishing 8th. They put him back to 18.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even have time. What if he wanted to give the spot back? He didn't have time.
He only had about 100 feet to get back.
Racetrack.
So, I mean, I could have, you know, you go in there and you say, okay, well, you didn't win. Oh, well, I ran second. No, you didn't.
No. Well, yeah, they could have pushed it back one spot, but that's not the way the rule is written. So,
down the rules.
Now, Mike, one thing we want to point out about this 09 car with Brad Keselowski, as far as just pure single car runs by the Go Homers yesterday, he was the fastest of those 10 cars. And if you see, he's running all the way at the top of the racetrack. This is a car that was bought from Hendrick Motorsports, and it's a Hendrick engine. So it's pretty much a full Hendrick package with this 09 car.
Okay, ran 50.99 yesterday in a qualifying single car run.
So this car is owned by James Finch, but it is a full Hendrick package for the.
Well, if he's going to get there from where he is right now, though.
He's running pretty much at the top of the racetrack, but you're right, Darrell. It looks like right now, if I had to guess, his first lap looks like it's going to be maybe in the 51.80s, 51.90s possibly.
Mark had a big time pickup. Not to make the race. I'm just talking about to have a shot at being up in the top 10 or so.
51.81. So we know he'll bump Michael McDowell.
Yeah,
That's pretty much a given.
Hey, if you think it's hot in Talladega, tomorrow the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour runs up at Stafford, Connecticut. The race is called the Spring Sizzler. It's going to live up to its billing. It's going to be 89 degrees in Connecticut tomorrow.
That's the best. That's great racing weather, man. If you're
yeah.
a fan, I mean, you know, you pack the cooler, you get your food all in there and your drinks, and you get some sunscreen. You go out there and watch the boys put on a show.
It'll be fun.
Tell you what, he's working on becoming about the third go homer to get up in the top 10. It's not going to be a pole run. He missed the Daytona 500, but he's going to race here tomorrow. Brad Keselowski.
That'll give us 2 rookies in the top 10. Scott Speed 8th and Keselowski 9th.
So as practice showed us yesterday, Eric McClure in the 4, Michael McDowell in the 66 will not race tomorrow.
So Juan Montoya becomes the 5th driver to win his first Sprint Cup pole at Talladega. He was the 15th driver out on the track, and in his 82nd start, he gets his first pole. He'll share the front row with Greg Biffle. Krista.
And down here with Juan Pablo Montoya, you're always good at this track, but now you have your first pole. How does that change how you sleep tonight? More confidence, more excitement for tomorrow's race?
It's kind of funny, you know, this Tom's Chevy, it was really fast since we unloaded yesterday. We didn't do much yesterday. I think it's the same car we ran in Daytona, and it was good there. Actually kind of surprised we're on pole. You know, we know we're always a really good race car here, but, you know, getting our first pole, it's big. You know, it takes a lot of weight out of everybody's shoulder, and it shows where, you know, where the team is heading, and it's very encouraging.
All right, thanks, Juan. Congratulations. A little bit of surprise, but now, Mike, starts the suspense.
Well, we have Tums on the car, but he won't need them. Montoya's on pole with Greg Biffle. There's his Chevrolet. Here is our Subway starting grid. How about Sam Hornish? Comes off his best career finish. Now he's going to have his best career start.
Yeah, I'm watching. I looked all the way back. I know we're going to get there. And Larry, go ahead and talk about your guy.
Joe Nemechek had a great run there. You see Dale Earnhardt Jr. Can we have 4 consecutive wins by Hendrick with 4 different drivers?
I'm looking at the guy starting 34th, and you know why, because the last couple of races have been won from the 34th spot here.
That's right.
And it's a guy that's been running good enough, well enough to win. My old buddy, the 00, David Rudiman, back there in 34th spot.
Look at Jimmy Johnson all the way back on row 19, but I guarantee you none of these drivers, when we complete lap 1, will be running where they're going to start this race.
Well, the big number in this field is 11, because that's where Junior Nation's driver will start.
Well, my pick is the 24 to win this thing.
Well, we'll see. All right, tune in tomorrow. NASCAR on Fox brings you 500 miles of NASCAR Sprint Cup racing from Talladega, Alabama. Congratulations to Juan Pablo Montoya. He wins the pole.
Tums for everyone.